Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the European Technology Network. The day is Tuesday, 25th of November, and we are back at home. We're back in the studio. We are back.
It feels good to be at home.
Back from hell. We went to hell and back. Helsinki.
Yeah, we did.
For Slush. Our first time at Slush, our first time in Helsinki as well.
Yep.
And what a great event. We did 21 interviews. We were live streaming for 6 hours. It was pretty intense. It was pretty back to back to back to back. But
I think I showed everyone my calendar. Like when we were at the events, we went to a few finishing events, whatever. And everyone was like, "Oh, like how was your day? Whatever." Like I saw you were live, and I was just like, "Well, look at my calendar." And it was just
I
like
was
ding
doing
ding
the
ding ding ding
calendar
ding.
thing, showing quite a lot actually.
It was pretty rough. It was cool though. It was so cool.
It was really cool, and the house we were staying in was amazing. Luke and I were discussing whether to have an after party, and then I found out an hour later that Luke had actually tweeted out that we were having an after party without letting me know, which is cool. But look, overall, great success. We've also got, which we announced the other day, we're live streaming another event. We'll be leaving this Thursday, so the usual stream on Thursday won't be happening. It'll be a similar format to Slush, but we'll be in Lake Como. We'll be there live streaming the Como 1907 Ventures Day, which is powered by the Players Fund. We'll be doing a similar setup to Slush, interviewing founders, CEOs, venture teams, and hopefully some surprise guests as well at Lake Como. But that is enough about what we've been up to.
It's going to be wicked. It's going to be very.
It's going to be super wicked. I don't think it's that sunny though, which is.
I know for some reason. I thought it was going to be like. It was. I don't know. I was like, oh yeah, shorts and a shirt.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Proper
Yeah, maybe some nice, very light.
Yeah, like Ralph Lauren vibe going on.
I hear you.
Maybe not. I think it's going to be a bit cold and windy, to be honest.
Definitely thinking like sunbathing opportunity, but I don't think that's going to go down.
These things happen.
Let's talk about the show. Let's talk about today. Before we do that, I just want to tell you about our friends over there. Airwallex, you've got to leave outdated business banking behind. It's the all-in-one financial platform, and it's built for the pace of modern businesses. Luke, why don't you just rattle off a couple of the guests today?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okie dokie. So first guest we have on in literally 5 minutes, Tom Waymere. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a partner and head of intelligence at Atomico. They just released their State of AI 2025 report that they do. I think it's like the 11th edition, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
They've been checking that thing out for a long time, and it always gets like a lot of hype, which is great. I mean, it's such a good resource as well.
Did they launch it on X or no?
They launched on X, I believe. I think next year they should do like a launch video for it.
I'm a fan of that.
And show everything that's going on. Throughout the year, you go and do. Actually, maybe we should ask Tom this question. Throughout the year, you get a videography team, and they go to different startups and film different things.
I mean, it sounds great.
And then obviously post it when you go live with the State of AI report. I think that'd be great. Great top of funnel.
I'd watch that. I'd like that. Tweet as well.
Good stuff. Then we're going to have a break. We've got half an hour of a break because it's been a while since we've been. Last week we only had one session, but we had no time where we were actually just us two. So
yeah, but we had a guest coming in, but they've had an opportunity to increase shareholder value. And as you know, on the show, we will always say, take the opportunity to increase shareholder value.
Go and do it.
The guest is Bar Winkler, CEO and co-founder of Wonderful. We'll work on another time to get him on, but they've recently raised 100 million Series A, so as you can imagine, things are pretty hectic for them. Which is fine. So Luke and I will just be going through a bit of the news. You'll be able to hear a little bit more about the tales of Slush.
It's going to be good fun.
Please continue.
Then we have.
Interruption.
No, you're good. Then we have next on third guest, or second guest, was meant to be third, Sid Jayakumar. He's the founder and CEO of Finster AI. He's an ex-DeepMind, was there for 7 years, I believe. Very kind of London-based, UCL, Cambridge vibe.
Love to hear that.
They've raised 17 million so far, recent Series A, backed by Hoxton. Essentially, they're like a AI financial research and task automation platform for investment banking, asset management, equity research. I want to ask a load of stuff about what the role of the analyst is and all of that kind of stuff.
Wonder if they know
and how
the
they're kind of working with these investment banks who are mostly quite legacy. Like they, in terms of tech, like, you know, they have their ways and you know, it's a very kind of, I guess, relationship-based world. And it'll be interesting to understand how they're kind of navigating that. So that would be good. I believe they've just opened their New York office as well, or they're going to do that with the funds, with their Series A. So that'll be great. Good to hear. Ton of like Revolut guys working for them, and so very cool startup, which is cool.
We've got Tom coming in 2 minutes.
Okay. Fourth guest, Stefan Daniel Grava. He is the co-founder and CPO of Mimic Robotics. Very cool startup. I'm not going to touch too much on them because we don't have too long.
Is it spin out? Robotics.
There you go, nice. Tim Levine, CEO, Augmentum Tech. They're the only UK VC that is publicly listed. They invest primarily, I think, or exclusively into fintech. They've backed Iwaka, Tide, a bunch of other people.
I saw that like the Augmentum FinTech team were getting behind the post on LinkedIn as well, the guest announcement, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, they were.
Pretty strong.
Let's go, good stuff. And then we have Florian Heinemann. He is the founder and partner of Project A, an ex-marketing genius, or he is a marketing genius. He did some, I think he built Crush Juice, which had a few offices in London, which was a few kind of spots in London, which was awesome. And then did a load of bunch of other stuff on boards and everything.
Also,
and now
the AKA is godfather of defence. Is what people call him.
So Project A have started to move into defence, but I think the big kind of like thing that people aren't saying is Project A aren't just defence. I think we kind of got this a little bit wrong. And so, who did we have on at Project A? Was it Jack Wang?
Yeah.
So he heads up the defence side, whereas Florian actually heads up, I believe, more of the kind of marketing side. So it's like not his. So it's like defence is like a core investment topic, but like they're very much not just defence. If that makes sense. As a fund, yeah. Exactly.
I think Florian does a lot of.
So like he's like his main thing is like digital marketing. He's a digital marketing expert.
I see.
He is like the guy digital marketing. So we've had the defence, had Jack Wang. Now we're going to have Florian to talk all about that, everything about kind of like activity of capital in venture in Europe and all that kind of stuff. So it will be a good one too. So yeah, let's do this. Let's roll on first guest when we have them on. You be good?
Are they in the waiting room? Do we have Tom up in the studio?
I can't hear anything.
I can't hear Tom. Is Tom in the studio, Ola? We have him here. Tom, can you hear us?
I hear nothing.
My mic's muted, I think that's why. Tom, can you hear us?
Here we go.
Right, now I hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Wonderful stuff. Tom, how's it going? This is I've been waiting to do this session for a while. I mean, for those who are listening and don't know, Tom's been helping us out for a while. Tom, I think
was
before we even
angel.
shot the first show, which is really cool. So welcome to the European Technology Network. We're honoured to have you. For those who maybe don't know you and what you do, could you maybe introduce yourself and we can go from there?
Yeah, well, it's a shame we couldn't make it happen at Slush. I've got a bit of FOMO from not being able to join, but it's great we can finally make it happen. So yeah, I'm Tom. I'm with Atomico. Atomico, for those of you that don't know us, we're a European VC. We've been going 20 years or so now, investing from basically pre-seed all the way up to pre-IPO. I'm a partner here, and I have a few different hats. So, on the investing side, I sit on our investment committee. Probably the most relevant for this conversation is, I would say, I wear this market education hat, and what that really means is I basically bang the drum for European tech to anyone that will listen. So, from our investors to the broader ecosystem to policymakers to the media, and 11 years ago now, I started the State of European Tech because I felt like we weren't very good in Europe at telling our story. And so we kind of we basically created a PowerPoint deck to try and tell the story with data, and that's obviously grown into something a bit bigger over the last few years.
Very awesome. Cool. And it's been going for 11 years, right? Is this the 11th edition?
Yeah. I think it's funny because I think we're going to have to keep doing it for another 11 years at least, because the need to sort of tell the story never stops. But I suppose, like, why did we start it? It was pretty clear to us that when we were spending our time on the ground speaking to founders, that there was something really special around entrepreneurship, around tech in Europe, but the rest of the world wasn't seeing that. And so we'd walk into meetings, whether it was with big institutions looking to invest in VC, or whether it was with journos trying to understand what was happening, and there was just a lot of stereotypes. Europe can't do tech. Europe, you can't produce billion-dollar companies, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. And so sometimes you sort of have to step into that and try and bridge it. And I'm a massive believer in the power of data to tell a story, but also to change people's minds. And so that's why we've been doing it for all that time. And obviously I know that you guys believe that too.
That's awesome. Yeah, and with the report, like how do you go about collating the data? Like, how's it all? Like, what's the process there?
Yeah, and we've always felt like that this would only be effective if like you could trust the data and it was objective. And so we've basically built a massive ecosystem of data partners. So from Dealroom to PitchBook to Crunchbase to Revelio Labs to S&P Cap IQ, like basically anyone who can give us an interesting angle on what's going on. And the whole objective of the report has always been, let's not just look at investment flows, like let's look at all the core ingredients from, talent to exits and what's happening on the public markets to obviously covering all the usual things like investment themes, also looking at things like mindset and how that's shifting. We do that with a big survey. So we've had, I think it's probably the longest running, largest scale survey of the ecosystem as a whole. So we always get, many thousands of people and founders and investors and policymakers and LPs, giving their perspective. And then the last thing is, I think in reality, like if it was only data, people, you're not kind of bringing it to life in the best possible way. So we've always felt like it's important to go out and speak to the most important people, the most influential thought leaders in the ecosystem, and get their take on what's happening each year. So, like this year, this time around, there's Anton from Lovable, there's Matty from 11 Labs, there's Ursula von der Leyen from the European Commission, and a bunch of other folks all sort of giving their view.
Yeah, it feels like there's some form of like mood shift in kind of European tech, and this kind of this report highlights that. And I want to ask, like, do you kind of feel that like rising optimism, and how much does that kind of the report speak to that kind of shift?
Well, this time last year, basically one of the conclusions when we published last year's report was we'd felt like 2024 had been this year of doomerism. There was so much doom and gloom around the ecosystem, and so what we said was, what we need to see from here is a mindset shift. This is the real barrier to European progress. And I think anyone that spends time in entrepreneurship and tech and innovation knows that pessimism and doom and gloom is basically fundamentally incompatible with those things. And there's no question that in the last 12 months there's been an awakening. I think on the founder side of things, what comes through really clearly is just step change in ambition level, step change in optimism, step change in basically like velocity of execution. I think we point to this in various ways in the report, but one thing I think like anecdotally that's been amazing to see is people aren't afraid now to to get out there and say, hey, I'm trying to build a €1 trillion company from Europe, and that level of ambition, I think is exactly the type of kind of mood shift, vibe shift that we've seen. And it's not just on the founder and builder side. I think what we've also seen is a mindset shift on the policymaker side. And this is really important. And one of the things that we talked about a lot on the report is there's definitely this sense of urgency that we're in, that, like we have an economic imperative, we have a sort of future of Europe imperative to sort of act on building the best possible environment here in Europe for our founders, for startups and scale ups. And so that's another side to the mood shift that we try and capture in the report.
Yeah, that's like a really interesting and what seems like quite a hot topic generally right now, just from the people that we've been speaking to. I think it was Vil from founder at Slush. We interviewed him at Slush. We were very lucky to have that set up. And I've seen themes around this with other individuals that we've had on the show as well. But this idea that like the politicians in the UK, but more generally in Europe as a whole, we have to start marrying like the policies with the technology space. Like we have to start seeing more people in positions of like political influence or power or whatever sort of start to look at the space a bit more and treat it not more seriously, but treat it in a sense where like we can understand that this space can help us unlock the future.
That's where it's moving the needle.
Yeah, right. Like with Matt Clifford, with the co-founder of Slush, James Wise at Boulderton, like loads of these people that we speak to, they talk about this marrying sort of act of the technology / startup / scale up space with current politicians in power. And I think we're starting to see elements of the shifts. Like James Wise recently was voted in as the chairman of this new sort of like Government UKI Act. What how do you see this working? Like, do you see that's like a realistic future?
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's no question, first of all, that startups have gone from being what was like basically the sideshow to a realization that this is ultimately the main event. Like this is kind of, it's trillions of euros of European GDP that's on the line here. And then more so beyond just kind of the economic case, if we don't succeed in building capability through technology, then we're not going to be in a position, whether it's at the national level or at the European level, to shape the future on the terms that we want. So that's why like there's been that realization and kind of awakening on the policy side, and now, like as you've said, that's starting to translate into a roadmap of things that we know that we need to do to make sure that we raise the ceiling of the potential of our tech ecosystem. So like how big can we go? And then secondly, ultimately steepen the trajectory that we can grow into that. Because so there's loads of things that we've covered in the report that show that Europe's built this amazing tech ecosystem. Like we've basically gone from 20 years ago measuring things in like tens of billions of value to now measuring things in trillions of value. Even just in the last 2 years, we've added a trillion of market cap. Like now, obviously that gets put in global context, right? It's like we've made all this progress, like we're firing on all cylinders from a tech ecosystem perspective, but nowhere else in the world is standing still. So, what we've tried to set out in the report is like what we call like this roadmap, these 4 missions to make sure that we get to a place where we do actually have these €1 trillion companies that we aspire to build. And we kind of called it like 4 missions. So fix the friction. How do we go from having this like fragmented European landscape to one that feels frictionless and that we can scale across like and realize the sort of full continental scale of the firepower that we have? How do we empower talent is the second one? How do we basically capture this massive opportunity that now exists to position Europe as the very best place for the most ambitious and best builders. And then how can we fund that future that we want? So this is all about how do we actually get to a place where we have deep liquidity that's homegrown, from like the first angel check all the way into the public markets, that's fit for our emerging champions. And then the last one, and then I'll shut up and hand it back to you guys, but is like champion risk. And this kind of, comes back to a lot of the conversations I know you guys have been having as well, which is like, how do we actually get to a place where we treat like our risk culture, like how we talk about ambition, how we talk about progress, how we talk about failure, as just like this foundational infrastructure for us that's as critical for our success as like energy or as our capital stack. And the nice thing is that there's a roadmap of initiatives on the table that are in discussion and design that can actually move the needle on all of these 4 missions.
I always look when like I'm looking at like macro kind of trends, I always try and look for like that one chart that kind of is the clear like identifier of what the whole kind of thesis around like one macro trend or report is. I want to ask you what is that chart in the State of AI report? Like what? The State of Europe report. What is the that one chart that you can see and be like, that's the thing that we either need to change or that's making the point right there.
All right. Yeah. Can I go with 2 charts?
You can go with 2. Yeah.
If Luke,
I prefer one, but
or am I going to get booted off? So one chart that's in there that I think is amazing is that we've seen a wave of entrepreneurship in the last couple of years that we've never seen before in Europe. So actually, we kind of show founders starting new companies year by year, and this year was an all-time high for Europe.
Yeah.
So that's like amazing. Like that shows that we've succeeded in building this kind of entrepreneurial mentality here in Europe. And maybe the other one that I'd then say is, in our survey, we said, as founders, how do you think the operating environment is for you? Is it supportive or restrictive? And 70% of founders say it's too restrictive. So I think that tells you, like, on the one hand, we've got the ideas, we've got the talent, we've got the companies being started, but we are making our founders play in hard mode. And what we need to do is, like, if we want to scale bigger and faster, we've got to, address that, as we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think like championing risk, like I feel like maybe in the entrepreneurs in the early kind of, that space, obviously the risk appetite is there, but maybe in the policy and the things that restrict those entrepreneurs, that risk appetite isn't necessarily there. What does like championing risk in that kind of policy realm, what does it actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so Ronan's wearing an EU Inc hat, right? I can see. Good. Glad to see that. And we have this like first test of whether policymakers really mean it and are serious and are kind of in it to win it, to create the right conditions for for the startups and scale-ups that they're saying that they want to create a Europe that's worthy of them, with like EU Inc and the 28th regime proposal right now. And so, as I'm sure has been discussed many times on the show, policymakers can go down, the path of least resistance, or they can take the hard option and implement something, that has been built by founders for founders and that will actually solve the problems that founders recognize when it comes to, to starting up an incorporation and then scaling across Europe and raising capital from across Europe with the EU Inc approach. And the hard route here is going regulation, which basically means one solution for one market for Europe, or they can go with a directive, which basically means that it's not enforceable at the member state level, and you could just end up with 27 different implementations and just add to the fragmentation that already exists. And so this is a great example where boldness is required to make sure that we get the right solution. And I think like this is a moment where we need to do the hard things, and it's on everyone, like whether it's founders taking on the hardest problems or policymakers taking on, you know, the hard, seemingly intractable solutions. And as many people always say, it's like everything feels impossible until it's done, and you can just do things. And you know, I have a sense of optimism that like there is a sense of like alignment and people coming together, you know, to sort of work towards like this bigger mission for Europe. And yeah, we're all going to be waiting patiently to see what happens now. And the other thing that everyone should be aware of is like beyond just EU Inc. and 28th regime, there's a European Innovation Act coming. There's a Quantum Act coming. There's a Procurement Reform Act coming down the line at the European level. So there's a whole bunch of things that are being discussed and will get designed. And it's a great opportunity for sort of all of us to engage in those conversations and make sure that they do get designed in a way that is actually, you know, going to be helpful to you know, to our founder and investor community.
Yeah, you love to hear that. You can feel it as well. Like we've been saying it for ages, and it's like, I don't know whether it is. I feel that a lot of it's been driven, as you say, Tom, by these sort of figureheads for the youth in particular. I think like Anton is just a shining example of like how risk on he is, in terms of like he's very openly saying, you know, I'm not building a billion euro company, a trillion euro company with Lovable. There's an article that we're going to discuss later, I think, where he sort of recognizes that the fact that they stayed in Europe is part of why they've recently hit 200 million ARR. But like, what was so we went to the Lovable party at Slush, something from 10 till 2 in the morning, which was actually quite wild.
And then he was on stage at like 9 o'clock the next morning as well.
Yeah. So he works hard and he plays hard, which is really cool. But you can just feel in the room, like, one, how many young people are there, and two, like how much he has influenced them as well. And like now they're all going to go off and build like their own cool, amazing stuff, because like Anton's there and he's showing that you can do it and it works. And you mentioned like Matthew from 11 Labs as well. Like we have amazing companies that we look up to, like Granola, Attio, and all the others. That are doing amazing things in Europe. But like you can, when you see it live, when you see it affect the people live, like that younger generation, it is, for me, that's the moment where I'm like, oh, it is working. Like that's like something that you can be like, oh, that's working.
And that's, you know, I think like this is the thing, like this is, we, for years in the report, we've talked about this flywheel effect, and a big part of the flywheel effect is like one generation influencing, inspiring, and being role models to the next generation. And that's been the story of European tech for 2 decades. So from, you know, obviously I'm with Atomico, and Nicholas, you know, was with Skype. Like that was the first true breakout success story, and then that went on to inspire, you know, Spotify and Daniel Ek and Sebastian at Klarna, and then from there you have like Target with Wise, and so you really see that kind of effect playing out at scale, and it's happening all across Europe. And you know, it's such a fundamental component, and that's why, to me, like I'm so optimistic about, you know, European tech and being long European tech and long European entrepreneurship, because, you know, there's such a sense of inevitability, and you know, like one of the most concrete ways that you see that this has a bar raising effect is that when we started this report, we did talk about, you know, okay, like billion euro companies. Then it was like, we tick that box, get to 10 billion euro companies, then we tick that box and you get to 100 billion. And suddenly now it's, you know, it's a trillion euro companies. And it's great. Like it's super inspiring and super powerful. And like we've just talked about, what we need to see happen is like this diffuse through the sort of broader economy and society as a whole. Like how do we get, as we've said already, like policymakers to think with that level of ambition, but also like our corporates. How do we start getting corporates like procuring the future and taking more risk and taking a bet on innovation? Because this is where we're also kind of leaving value and potential on the table, because we haven't quite seen that flow through there.
Yeah, I think there was something in the report that was like US corporates are a lot more involved with startups compared to European corporates.
Yeah.
Is that on like a capital sense? Is that on being able to for an entrepreneur to come and get a loan from a corporate bank or something? Like what's that in practice?
It's like it's both like engagement, like to what extent is there kind of just connectivity there? Are they spending time with each other? And then ultimately it translates into, spend flow. So if you look at, and this is not just corporates, it's also in the public sector too, who are massive procurers, like spending trillions each year. And if you just look at the share of spend on innovative services, it's like, high single digit percentage in Europe, it's 20% in the US. In places like South Korea, which are the most advanced in the world, it's more like 25%. So if you move the needle there just a few percentage points, like you're literally talking about, like hundreds of billions of additional kind of demand side firepower. And so unlocking that, it's not just going to be important to help accelerate the trajectory at which our companies can scale. Ultimately, it's going to be critical for those legacy incumbent businesses to also shape their future and to sort of continue to endure across generations as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was something like 9%, and then the US was 20%, and then
exactly.
South Korea was like 25%.
Wow.
So it's like, the target is 20, right? Is that right?
I think it's like set a big ambitious target, and then and then what we want to see happen from year after year is that it moves up. And one of the interesting things that we called out is, when we looked at public procurement, the EU made a commitment in 2014 to say, hey, we want to get to 20%, and now we're still stuck at 9%. Yeah. So we've got, we've got to have these targets, have an ambition to move the needle, and then actually see the follow through. So, 100%. That's why it's good that there is like this. There's a bunch of discussion about procurement reform. How do we actually make it easier, simpler to, for startups to access these massive budgets that exist?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're kind of out of time, but I kind of want to ask one more question if you've got time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, let's do it.
So obviously we talked about the report and everything, but obviously a lot of entrepreneurs watch this show and listen to us, and I want to just get from you, the person who's edited the report and written the report and everything, what is the main kind of advice that you would give for like an entrepreneur who's like starting a business, however old they are, doesn't matter, but they're starting a business in Europe? What's the thing that you think is like the biggest overarching advice that you could give?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically don't limit your ambition. There should be no limit to how bold and ambitious you can be. Like, we will produce trillion-euro companies. We can succeed in the hardest problem spaces, and we have the talent, and we're building everything else in terms of the core ingredients to allow you to thrive. So, that's the advice is champion risk, because without risk, there's no reward, no progress. And so keep going. And there's an amazing ecosystem around you to support you. And I think that's been the incredible thing to see, is just how we built this connectivity, like network and know-how, being available on demand.
Awesome. Love
to hear that. Yeah.
So good. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
And I should say too that it's a whole team behind the report as well. So,
that was your opportunity to take all the credit, Tom.
So big shout out to all of them, but thanks for having us on, and it's great what you guys are doing, and really important part to allow Europe to tell its story to a big audience as well.
The pleasure is all ours, Tom. Thank you so much for joining.
Cheers. Tom, thanks.
Nice one, mate. Oh, super interesting conversation. That's really cool to break that down. That was
I mean, he is the guy to talk to.
He is the guy.
Talk about
just first one in, back in
macro European stuff.
Yeah, so. yeah. That was actually that was awesome.
It's crazy. That's that. I can't remember what it is, but it's something. I can't remember what the beginning number is, but I think it's something. This could be wildly out of scope, but I'm pretty sure that it might be 27,000 people have started companies in Europe in the past year or something. Is that really low? I can't remember.
That seems low.
Maybe in the UK, somewhere like that. Something to do with 27,000.
But what classes is that? Because we see some people just
basically
drop a little stealth logo on the old LinkedIn there. what I mean? Like,
well, I just put myself in stealth there. No, it's people starting companies in like on Company's House or something.
Okay, yeah.
You know, it's not just they've gone in stealth. They've gone in stealth after they started a company.
You see that so often. Like, I get messages like, I don't know, yeah.
You get messages. What do you mean? I've just gone in stealth.
Like, hey, like, yeah, like, kind of like, do you want to test out the product? And it's like.
Well, it's funny when we went in stealth. Like, so many people were like, "Oh, what are you building? What are you building?" Like, it is a bit of a messy strategy, to be honest.
Yeah, we'd like done a bit.
Yeah, we played pretty well. We played it well.
Did a bit. We were dropping some hints, here, there, and everywhere.
We were dropping a few hints, but then because we'd already done like a very mini like soft launch or something, hadn't we? Before we went into stealth, but we quit our jobs and we're like, we're going to go do this.
Yeah. We're coming back with an army.
Launch, launch is coming or whatever, and then we went into stealth, and then everyone was like, oh, like.
That was a big.
You're in stealth. This is cool. What are you building? Can I invest?
There was a bit of hype that we tried. That we did a pretty good.
A little bit of hype in our little mini bubble and corner of the world.
Baby hype. It'll be a baby.
Well, we're in our corner of the world, right? Everyone watching, listening, us, everyone we talk to is in our corner of the realm of X and LinkedIn, and hopefully people enjoy what we do.
Yeah.
So, all fun and games.
Liking the picture of you eating a banana 40 seconds before we go.
Did you post that?
I did.
That's hilarious.
Sigil's giving us some love.
I want to touch on, just quickly, maybe this is a bit narcissistic of me, but of my tweet.
Let's do it. Should we pull it up?
Yeah, you can pull it up.
Let me.
But the reason why is because we were touching on this with
Luke
Tom.
would like to pull up his own tweet, if that's all right.
It's quite far down. It starts with the macro function.
No, I liked it. I liked it. I thought it was well written. I thought it was good.
Good. Well, you can read it out for me.
Oh, really? You want me to?
Well, okay, let's just give some context. The reason why I'm pulling this
Friedrich
up.
from Boyd.
Yes, and he liked it straight away.
Legend.
He was like,
he's such a legend. We need to get him on.
Yeah, we'll get him on. So the reason why I want to pull this up is because
here we go.
Basically, we were talking to Tom about this kind of more optimism equals more people feeling that they can do the same, meaning more participation, meaning more events, more noise, and therefore more winners, right? So it's kind of all this like flywheel, he said. I think he's literally said flywheel. And with this, Euro kind of state of European tech report kind of showing that there is some form of narrative change happening, us kind of being built and why we're doing this. And so I tweeted this, which was kind of just straight off the dome.
How did you do?
But then it did all right, 2K views or something. But what Tom was saying is literally exactly the same as what I've just said, basically.
Yes.
I wanted to read it out.
I bet that was making. Yeah, I bet you were happy with that with the conversation with Tom.
I was going to say it, and I thought it was a little bit too. It was a little bit too narcissistic to be like, oh, I wrote a tweet. Do you want to like listen to my tweet?
I've already tweeted everything you're saying.
I didn't have to write a report about it.
That's hilarious. Wait, should I?
Read it out?
You want me to read your tweet?
Yeah, go.
I'm honored that you would ask me to do that. The macro function of ETN, there is an ecosystem-wide shift that is compounding to build great products and companies. Stockholm is a perfect example of this, perceived opportunity density. Everything grows because people believe something is happening. The function of ETN is to amplify this on a macro scale. Very true. Here's why. Humans are mimetic. Ooh.
Yeah, no, typo.
Super rough. Seeing peers succeed increases density of others thinking that they can do the same. In tech, especially, this effect is stronger because outcomes appear outlier possible. Amplifying perceived opportunity density actually increases real opportunity density. Dude, my laptop might set on fire right now. This is pure flamage. ETN is a high output thought machine of optimism, thanks to the ones who pioneered the format in the first place. We all know who they are, and a nod of respect to them. Plus, the beauty of new media means the friction to amplify positive archetypes, founders, investors, etc., doesn't increase linearly with scale of reach. It creates a mimetic loop, more stories, more belief, more participation, more winners. The way of progress is to do more examples, more events, more shipping of good, in brackets, and bad things onwards. Yeah, dude, really.
It's exactly what he was saying, right? It's just
you summed it up really well.
If you show more stuff going on, and it's what the Industrial Revolution, Well, there's more positivity happening.
Shout out to
There's more
Jack
positivity
Needham for putting me on that.
Shout out to Jack Needham, right? What a boy.
What a boy.
More positivity, there's more kind of optimism around something, more things will happen. There's more winners as a consequence. And that's the function in a macro sense of ETN. You know, micro function is we talk to cool people, and if you want to get some cool snippets about all this stuff, and someone launches a product, comes out of embargo like Nicky Attio did, or we get an exclusive at Lavora.
That was cool, wasn't it?
Like, you know, that's where you come to ETN. But macro scale, it's all of these people building all these cool products, and us showing them, and us showing you what they're doing.
Yeah, and it summed up super well. And I think, when we talk to like comms teams, like when we're working with a team, we're trying to sort of shed a light on their portcos and maybe some of the partners as well. It is always like the same story which we tell in the sense of like, we're here to provide a stage, we're here to put the lights on, we're here to offer a microphone and let you tell the world the amazing thing that you're doing, or the amazing achievements that you're doing, or even the failures that you've gone.
Well, that's why I put and bad, because you got to ship bad things. You got to
if you want to make an omelette,
you got to ship things.
You got to break a few eggs, buddy.
100%.
How are you going to make an omelette without breaking a few eggs?
Exactly.
That wouldn't be an omelette. That'd be nothing.
A very crunchy omelette.
Yeah. Well, then the egg would break. Actually, I know you're saying that.
If you boiled an egg and then just put it on a piece of bread, you could technically say that's.
Wow, I don't know about that.
And didn't.
That would just be a boiled egg sandwich.
Well,
the bread makes it not.
Okay, too much of a tangent.
Although we can get rid of Luke's amazing tweet. Thank you.
Hey, what? I thought we were going to keep that on for the whole show.
No, it was good. It was beautiful. It was absolutely.
Should we touch on Lovables? Just a quick word from our sponsor, Airwallex. Leave outdated business banking behind.
Like
the all-in-one financial platform built for the pace of modern business. Multi-currency accounts, high-speed international transfers, corporate cards, expense management, and online payments. Where is it?
It's all in one place. They're all on one platform.
Oh,
I know I ruined it.
We love Airwallex. They're doing good stuff out here.
You kind of activated then like a sleeper agent.
Sorry, I don't know.
I mean, it's like I said a word that triggered like a sleeper agent part of your brain.
Yeah, bang, straight in.
Airwallex read. Don't worry, Airwallex has not made us sleeper agents. Well, it hasn't made me one. I'm not sure about.
We love.
Luke.
You know that Black Mirror episode where it's like, okay, well, what?
No, I've seen them.
I don't want to like spoil it for the audience.
Well,
yeah, no, but I don't want to spoil it for the audience. We're live. I'd rather I can spoil it for you, but I can't.
You're so caring.
Next guest.
I would have spoiled that
on. We have Sid Jayakuma. He's the founder and CEO of Finsta AI. He's an AI researcher, probably one of the smartest blokes we're probably going to be talking with on the show so far. He's ex-DeepMind, was there for about 7 years. Did a ton for them. He wrote a few bits in his description. I'm not going to lie, I did not understand anything.
That's usually a good sign.
It was good sign, right? So we're going to ask him about what they're building. They have raised $17 million so far. So it should be good. But I think before we do that, we've actually got a bit of time.
Yeah, let's talk about the Anthropic Cafe pop-up.
Yeah,
let's do that. Let's do a bit of that because this is cool. I just got up like someone's tweet at D Bilson, Dan Bilson.
This one went pretty viral.
Yeah, this one kind of popped. We've got Dan Bilson,
viral, but like semi-viral.
55,000.
Pretty okay. Yeah,
nearly 1,000 likes. Dan Bilson.
Dude, the branding is so good.
Anthropic.
Sam McAllister just killed it.
Yeah, they did a great job. I have something controversial.
What's your opinion?
I would like to do the man standing up meme. I think it's great. I think it's really great. I think the caps aren't that great. Just gonna throw it out there. Just gonna pin out the grenade, roll it right in the middle. There it is. I've said it. Why? Shoot me. Why? I think they're marketed pretty well. I think like the cafe. Will this ruin the screen share, or is that looking okay?
Looks pretty good to me.
Yeah. Is that okay? No, I think the branding's great. I think the cafe is, it's beautifully done on the interior. I think they had carol singers as well.
They said Santa Claude is coming.
Santa Claude. See, brilliant work. Lovely little play there. I like that. I'm a huge fan of it. the caps, I'm just not 100%
Okay,
sold.
so what could they have done better? I think, so I saw one on the train actually. I was going to Gatwick and I saw...
No, they're great caps.
Someone got off the train at Gatwick and he had a cap on.
Yeah.
And I was the other side of the thing, but I could see it. And I couldn't be asked to like go all the way up to him, but because I would have done and said, "Oh, nice cap,
Nice cap, buddy."
I work in tech too." But they were nice. They're cool.
No, look, they're simple. And I'd be like, "Thank you." I'd be happy about it.
Everyone would be like, "You went to the Claude."
You know, which is great. And I noticed a few people turned up. They missed the boat, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, they ran out of caps like speedy.
Which is fair. I think like the queues are huge. I think it's a really cool thing. Not like mogging, Anthropic.
Yeah, well, you're literally mogging.
I'm just mogging the cap.
You're mogging Sam McAllister and the team.
No, I think they did an amazing job. I'm annoyed I wasn't there. I'm annoyed I wasn't able to get.
So if you went there, would you have not got a cap? Is that what you're saying? I'm now pressing you because you're kind of like...
No, that's absolutely fine. Would I have gotten a cap? And there are caps there?
Yeah.
Yes, I would have gotten them.
But you don't like them?
Well, it's just like...
you're just taking from this free merch.
Look,
yeah,
man,
exactly.
It's dog eat dog out there. Sometimes I'd get it, I'd flip it outside for profit.
Jason Rodriguez had a good little take. I find it fascinating that Anthropic... Oh yeah, we can get
Pull that one up.
Pull that one up. I find it fascinating that Anthropic AI did the pop-up in New York and London before SF. It's textbook brand leaning culture forwards and want to create something intentional, well executed. It's true. They could have easily done it in ASF.
Got a good shot.
Would have got exactly how we thought it would go.
Yeah,
pretty viral. But they're doing it in places.
Is it
London.
mad in SF? Like everyone's like, oh, another one.
They would go for Claude. They would.
No, they go. I guess if they go.
But like in London, that's the thing. I feel like we're starved of these things. I think more things like this need to happen. More pop-ups.
I do agree.
Imagine. I don't know. What's a cool? I was gonna say Beside. Imagine Beside did a cool pop-up. Yeah, Beside. They release an album. Imagine they do a little set like in a cafe.
Maxime was doing a set. I'd go to that.
Maxime, do a set. Get the Beside team into a cafe, hire it out for an afternoon, and do a set of your new album in a cafe.
I think. Wait, they dropped an album.
They dropped it's like a marketing stunt. They dropped an album.
No way! I didn't see that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
No, I think Jason Rodriguez is spitting facts. It was like I don't know. I think it's. Yeah, I guess it is intentional, or maybe like I'm not sure if there was an overlaying decision where, the top peoples decided like let's purposefully do this in London before touching New York or SF, or just like hey, this looks cool, maybe let's set this up next week. I don't know, but it's I think it is kind of like a culture nod, and I want to create something intentional. And from what I've heard, it was very well executed. Everyone had a great time there. I think the carol singers were a great touch, like a great
very London.
Yeah, because they were dressed in like
they were
old.
English, right? Were they English? Don't they?
I don't know. I wasn't there, but it was. They were dressed in like what seemed like old, like Euro-y style attire.
Yeah.
Which is which seems very on brand, but enough of that. We can pull that one away and go back to.
We can go back. Should we mention Lovable? It's 200 million ARR. They did it while we were at Slush, or just before. Obviously, we didn't go live properly last week. We only had one show on Wednesday, which is probably the busiest days of our life anyway. Which is
when was that?
And we didn't even have time to mention and celebrate that Lovable had hit 200 million ARR.
Slush.
Yeah. But he credits staying in Europe for its success, which is interesting.
Let me pull this one up.
I think we should just read the article.
Yeah.
I'll let you get to the article. Here we go.
It's TechCrunch.
Love that. Osika credited the AI-assisted code software maker's decision not to move to Silicon Valley as the main reason for its success thus far. Osika said Lovable decided to stay in Europe despite getting a lot of early advice that the company would be successful if it left the region and located to the US. It was tempting, but I really resisted that, Osika said. I can sit here now and say, look guys, you can build a global AI company from this country. There is more available talent if you have a strong mission. and you have a lot of urgency coming together as a group and working. The AI market in Europe is not as fast-paced as the market in Silicon Valley, has worked to the company's benefit. The company flipped the script by bringing strong talent from Silicon Valley companies like Notion and Gusto to work in person in Stockholm, investor Xenia Loginov, partner at Axel, said. And it kind of touches on the point that you've made a few times on the show, that you can build in Europe for a talent discount, discount on talent. And it's not
sell it at a premium.
And sell it at a premium.
I'd be keen to look at like what percentage of their customer base is.
I would say customer
US.
base is what the kind of global geographic split.
Just like the distribution, right? I just think it'd be like number 1 is US, number 2. Do you think Stockholm would be number 2?
I genuinely think it could be. Purely because of like the patrionism.
Yeah, you just kind of get that. I mean, I'm paying.
But also, like, there's a
like I got a $20. I'm paying for Liverpool's like basic plan. Have been for months. Never use it.
Why not?
I'm just supporting my boy. No, I got it like a while ago, and then just forgot to cancel it.
We need to start building some products on there.
Yeah, we should do that. I mean, it's a good job that I have my account. I haven't been on it in ages, to be honest, but I just play around with it.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, so. This is like a key thing. There's, again, we were talking to Tom about it, and it's like there is so much talent density here, and therefore when opportunity density increases, or the just general perceived opportunity density increases, all that talent will therefore participate more in trying to go and grab that opportunity. And in that kind of function, that perceived opportunity density becomes actual real opportunity.
Yeah.
density.
Yeah. I think I've told the story before, maybe, but.
And this is just like this is kind of, I guess, I don't want to say a Kickstarter because they haven't necessarily started it, but they've really they've put a fire up Europe's,
ass
behind. Yeah.
Really interesting, like early story from when these guys were popping off. So when I was at Convergence, I remember seeing them and I was like, wow, these guys are like. Anton was very public with growth figures and whatnot. And I remember, I might have told this on the show, I'm not sure, maybe it was on the old show, but Sia Vash, who was the VP of Engineering, who was the VP of Engineering at Shopify, he'd sold one of his products, his company, to Shopify early days. There was an acquisition, incredibly smart individual, has been the VP of Engineering there for some time. He's actually coming on the show next month with some cool stuff to share. I can't say anything about that at the moment, but he is an angel investor in Lovable. Super early on. He's from Stockholm. Works in Stockholm, and he. I think it was like, I'm not sure if it was after or before the angel check, but he was talking to Anton over the phone or on a call. And Anton was telling him about like the growth, and he sent him a chart like, hey, like look at this user growth graph, like look how quickly it's scaling.
Yeah.
And obviously that consumer product, there's like a freemium element there. You don't have to start paying for it straight away. You can use a free version of it. And he was like, yeah, look, dude, that number's cool. Like the graph looks great, but just call me when you start seeing like the paid users like graph. Like, I don't want to see like the free users graph. Like, I'm not bothered about that. Yeah. And he was like, oh, dude, that's the paid users graph. And he was like, oh, okay, wow, this is like generational type company.
Yeah. You've won in some.
Which is really cool. Yeah.
Let me go deeper and see why.
Which is really really cool story there. Let's see, Marsh. Blessed us with about the early days.
Yeah. Bless us. They're blessed. Quick word on Fora workspaces to make your everyday extraordinary. Premium flexible office spaces that drive performance, productivity, and well-being. Be surrounded by greatness and rub shoulders with some of the world's most exciting companies. Go to Foraspace.com.
It's where we rub
Foraspace.co.
It's where we do most of our work.
Foraspace.co.
We have to shout out the amazing suites that they have. Luke likes them quite a lot.
Yeah, they're great.
Shoving them in.
They're great.
The what is it? The Fangs?
Yeah. So in Yeah, they have fangs, which is great. Let's touch on Fuse Energy. UK startup Fuse Energy nears new funding at $5 billion valuation. The company, founded by former Revolut executives, was valued at $1 billion at a fundraise earlier in the year. Now valued at $5 billion. Exciting.
I've got logged out my FT. Yeah.
Oh, great. So we can't get that up.
Well, I can pull it up.
The company is trying to position itself as a fast-growing player in the UK energy sector by providing cheap power to consumers and developing its own renewable power assets, such as solar panels. It is aiming for $100 million in the latest round, according to familiar people with the matter. Lower carbon capital is set to lead the round. Also looked at, Boulderton's leading. Boulderton's investing some.
Yeah.
Are they investors?
I think they came in quite early, yeah.
Interesting.
Sorry, I'm trying to sort this out.
Yeah, you're logging into FT.
Yes, sir.
Nice. Okay, so it's 2 minutes before we have our next guest on the show.
I'm in.
Sid Jayakumar, he's the founder and CEO of Finsta AI. They are basically building a financial research and task automation tool or platform for investment bankers, asset managers, and equity research analysts.
Can't wait.
I just wanted to understand.
I've got the article up, by the way.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Can we share this? What? Yeah, we are nice. Just going from the article, UK startup Fuse Energy nears new funding at $5 billion valuation. Fuse Energy, a UK startup founded by former Revolut executives, is in advanced talks to raise new funding at a valuation of about $5 billion, which would mark a five-fold increase from when it raised money.
Yeah, earlier this year it raised at a $1 billion valuation.
It's nuts. The company's trying to position itself as a fast-growing player in the UK energy sector by providing cheap power to consumers and developing its own renewable power assets, such as solar panels. It is aiming for $100 million in the latest round, according to people familiar with the matter. US-based investment for low carbon capital, set to lead the round, and then our friends over there at Boulderton are also coming in as well. The firm's backed Fuse in an investment round that valued the company at about $1 billion in July.
We should get Alan Chang back on the show.
Yeah, we should.
Alan Chang, for anyone who doesn't know, he was employee number 3 at Revolut.
Oh, was he number 3?
Yeah, employee number 3 at Revolut.
Pretty cool.
And he is the founder of Fuse Energy. He is a wicked guy and very, very exciting. It would be awesome to talk to him.
Only founded in 2022 as well.
Yeah. It's an early company.
I did not know that.
He also mentioned a guy called John Fingleton released a tweet that we probably should read out as well. It got 1.2 million views.
I think we got Sid coming in.
Have we got it? Okay. I just want to say that Alan Chang retweeted this and quote retweeted and was like, "Fuse would love to build nuclear fission, but costly regulations is stopping us. I'm glad the UK government is taking this seriously."
Interesting. Some parallels there with what Tom was saying earlier, right? Like founders are feeling restricted. I mean, this is a very specific example, to be fair, but.
No, it's true, and it's obvious as well.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think we have Sid on the show.
Cool.
Now.
We can pull. Are we good to go? Oh, we're live. We love to hear it. Sid, how are we? Welcome to the European Technology Network, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm a big fan. I hope you guys keep doing more of this and get better guests than me on the show.
I don't know about that. We were just looking.
I saw the calendar and I was like, oh, why have we got this guy on?
when we were doing the research, like the background is just so insane.
Yeah, I actually said like 2 minutes ago. Probably a little bit earlier. I was like, this is probably one of the smartest guys we've had on the show so far.
So
kudos to you.
You can be humble. We don't have to be humble for you. We're going to big you up.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm just assuming we're live already. I don't even know if we are.
We are. You assumed correctly. We are live and direct.
Awesome. Well, do you want to fire with questions? Do you want me to do a quick intro?
Intro would be best first. Yeah. Who are you? What is Finsta? And then we got a bunch of stuff to ask.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll let you guys do your grilling. So I'll give you a quick one. I'm Sid, based in London. Run a company called Finsta AI. We're basically building AI agents for investment banks and large asset managers. Before that was at DeepMind for a while, for 7 years, kind of training large models, DeepRL, things like that. That's a whole story in and of itself. And before that was at Cambridge and UCL, and very fan of the show and very bullish on UK and European tech. UK more than European, but we can pretend this is the UK tech network.
You love to hear that. A true patriot on the stream today.
Yeah.
Really cool. Where do we even start?
I think we should start. I want to start on Google DeepMind.
Let's do it. Let's do it. By the way, I didn't know that there was a film out about. I'm blanking on the founder of DeepMind's name.
Demis. Yes.
Yes. A documentary. The Thinking Game. I didn't know. I literally found that last night. I bookmarked it. I'm going to watch that today. It looks
funny.
insane.
I haven't seen it as yet, but
I was going to ask if you'd seen it.
I was there when it was being recorded, and I definitely walked past in a bunch of frames. And I only know this because I had a mate who was watching it send me a clip going, I can see you in the background here. You are walking into that shot. Nobody edited it out, so that's great. So you will see me walking into Demis's shot multiple times while he's talking about interesting things.
Well, this has made me even more excited to watch that. Was that on purpose? Did you think like, hey, I can get a bit of
I had my headphones on and I was doing what I was doing. Anyway, look, Demis is, I often said, now that we're on him, I often said, like, for me, staying at DeepMind was a bet. Like, Demis was a bet on DeepMind. A bet on DeepMind was a bet on Demis.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to be inspired by the guy. It's also great because I think in the context of this show, I give Demis and DeepMind so much credit for the fact that there is an AI ecosystem in Europe and an AI ecosystem in the UK, right? And I said this pithy comment to a journalist once that got in a sifted article, but essentially DeepMind gets bought by Google. There's no reason for them not to move to SF, except all the co-founders are like, we're going to stay in London. And I give credit to the fact that Demis is a season ticket holder of Liverpool FC and wanted to make sure he could still get to home games. So I actually think Liverpool gets credit for this.
No way, we're giving the credit to Liverpool? Who knew that Liverpool was the reason that London's AI talent density
that's
is
my
so high?
butterfly effect story.
Yeah.
Mohamed Salah is single-handedly responsible for the UK.
We have shout out to Liverpool. We have so much. Yeah, shout out to Liverpool. That is just we are so grateful for Liverpool.
That's hilarious. So what did you specifically? What was your role in Google DeepMind? What was the 7 years?
I feel like my career is a lot of happy accidents. So DeepMind was a complete accident really on day one. So they got bought 2014 or 2015 by Google. At the time, it was the largest acquisition that Google had done in Europe. I think the way to think about what they were doing before that and after that is really this. Like I have this there's this motto I say at Finsta, which I think is very much something from DeepMind, which is never bet against the AI, right? Like not to make this a rant against other views, but there's this like fundamental belief that if you take really good tech and you give it a lot of data, it will just do unbelievable things. Right, and we're seeing that with Gemini 3. We saw that with ChatGPT. That was the ChatGPT moment. So the problem that we had in like 2014, 2015 was there was just not enough data or processing power to train these models the way you train a ChatGPT. There was no way to collect trillions of tokens. We didn't have the computer process it. So the thing they did very smartly was, and this was because Demis's background was in video games, was going, well, if you do this in simulation, and you get it to learn video games, there's a lot of intelligent stuff it needs to learn how to do, and you have a point system and you can see how well this thing is doing, but also you can simulate a video game at whatever frames per second you want. You just get it to play 100 Ataris in parallel instead of one, and it's got data there. So they had this amazing demo that they did in 2015 where they show it playing all these old Atari games in simulation, and the agent starts and it's really dumb. So like, Breakout, there's a bunch of bricks, there's a little paddle, you have to get the ball to go and hit that. And then when it starts, it's really dumb. It can just control the paddle. It doesn't understand the physics of how balls bounce. By the end of 2 days of training, it had gotten to the point where not only could it beat every level, it had found a bug in the game where if you pointed the ball at a certain corner angle, I think we've all found this bug at some point, the ball would just go on the top and like buzz around and break all the bricks for you, and it would be like the least effort. And so I saw this clip in 2015 when I was still a student, because Demis had come to Cambridge, where I was at the time, to do a presentation. And I'd never heard of DeepMind, and I'd been doing some AI and speech recognition. Anyway, the story goes, I I basically hounded them for an internship. And they made me do this interview test that they were giving a whole bunch of PhDs and master's students. I did very well on that. So I ended up being their first undergrad intern in 2016.
Wow.
And then I dropped out of Cambridge. I was supposed to do a master's and then just stayed there. I was supposed to do a PhD, which they then very nicely funded for me to do at UCL, which I then dropped out of also to do Finster. So there's a lot of randomness in the story. But so I was there for 7 years. A lot of the first 3 or 4 years was on this video game stuff. And we were just trying to get agents to be better and better and play harder and harder games. So we started with Atari, then we went to like simulated 3D worlds. We had this thing called DM Lab. We then did like StarCraft. And so there was the whole thing about DeepMind, beating the StarCraft Grandmaster. We did Go, we did chess. All of that stuff really culminated in what becomes, it came from the stuff we'd done on AlphaGo, but it kind of culminates in one direction in the LLM stuff, in another direction in the kind of AlphaFold stuff. That's one way of doing it. I moved to the kind of LLM side in my last couple of years. We were then at the point where we had access to a lot of text and we had the net. And so the idea was, well, you can sort of do very similar things with the kind of corpus of internet text that you could do on these games. And so my role, there's a big team by then. Well, it was 50 people that were working on LLMs when I was there. And my bit was around getting them more efficient to put into production and getting smaller models to be as good as bigger models. That felt big at the time. I think Gemini is now 1,200 people. So that's really grown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Gemini 3 launching and the fact that ChatGPT has kind of almost won the kind of consumer, race. Do you feel like Gemini 3 is going to kind of come over and take that spot? Do you feel like that's true? I mean, we'll talk about Finster in a second. I just want to ask about that.
No, that's fine. Happy to talk about DeepMind. Look, I think Google's playing a different game, right? Like if you're Google, your consumer product is search. And as long as in fact, if you look at the latest earnings calls and stuff, the number of people using AI preview and search is through the roof. And I use it all the time. I used to use Perplexity and ChatGPT. It's just so much easier now. I do a Google search, I see the preview answer. If I don't like it, I just scroll down to whatever else. But more often than not, I find myself with the preview answer is fine.
Yeah.
And so for them, they don't need people to use Gemini directly. They need Gemini to be so good that people just use Google search.
Yeah.
That is a better outcome from the consumer side. And so I don't think they're worried about the Gemini app from a consumer side. Maybe they are, but I don't think they would be about optimizing it. What Gemini also gives them, which is great though, is it means startups like us building on top of them use the Gemini API instead of the OpenAI API. And then that means I use GCP. So if you're Google, the enterprise side, you basically get to double dip. You get money on the LLM APIs, and you get money on GCP Cloud. And the best bit is your GCP Cloud is hosted on TPUs, which are your own chips, not NVIDIA's. So you're making money on every part of the stack. Whereas if you're OpenAI, you're hosting it on somebody else's cloud, so you're paying them a cut, somebody else's chips that you have to buy. And so it's just the API that you're really making money on. Google could basically say the models are free if you use GCP. And still make money off giving me TPUs and giving me cloud access and whatever I pay them a year. So I think they're just so vertically integrated that on the enterprise side, they will do amazingly out of this, right?
Yeah,
the only blocker was like, well, I kind of like ChatGPT, but if Gemini 3 is as good as it is, there's no reason for me to veer outside that ecosystem.
Yeah, that consumer side is such a good take as well. The fact that you don't need anyone going into the app. It's purely just it's living in what humans have been using for years and years, which is just Googling stuff, right?
We also saw, I just wanted to bring up because it's relevant to the conversation, but did you see Mark Benioff's tweet? I think it was yesterday, when he was just used the new Gemini model. I've been using ChatGPT for 3 years. I used this for 2 hours. And now I'm not going to go back. Now I'm not going to use ChatGPT again. And there's a lot of that sort of CEO market moving sort of like someone brought up that Sam Altman had tweeted out that they could build like a very strong CRM internally, and therefore other CRMs were redundant. And I think Salesforce's stock price took like a slight dip. Just is it related to his tweet? I don't know, but these people do have the power to move markets sometimes. But it was just funny to see Mark after being a very open lover of GPT tweet that out. But he can be a bit of a cowboy.
Yeah, firstly, he's a cowboy. I think some of it is true. I think it's true, but I also think a part of it is like the narrative. The narrative was so anti-Google for so long. I think we're going to overcorrect in the other direction, which I don't mind personally. But it was never true that Google was that far behind ChatGPT. They had a narrative problem. I will link this back to the UK here. Here, I'll make my 1 point for the show. That is the problem with the UK, is a narrative problem. That's it's a similar. I will call the UK the Google in this, which is a bad analogy, but we're not as far behind as we think we are. We're actually really ahead in a bunch of things. It's like a tech ecosystem. But there's this narrative problem, the same way Google had this narrative problem. What's happened with Gemini 3, but also with their last results and a bunch of things, is the narrative and the zeitgeist on social media has flipped, right? And also in the market. The stock is up 35% this month, Google, right? That is not just based on fundamentals. That's also the narrative has shifted of oh, Google is this AI loser. They've got so many people. What are they doing on models? How are they going to compete? The wars are over. Dude, the wars have not begun, right? On everything here. On AI, the race has not even started yet. If you think about the amount of value that is there to be accrued on both models, applications, infrastructure, real world impact, we are in year 1 of 10 here. And I think whether that's for the model providers, whether for that's us as Finster, that's something I tell the team all the time. There's a phrase somebody used recently for me, and they're going to know who they are when I say this, but it's patient urgency is the theme right now with AI. You got to be patient. The race is not going to be won in the next year, but you can lose it in the next year. You can really mess it up. The people who win this are the people who are around 10 years from now, whether that's on the model layer, application layer, infra layer, whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you take that building Finster? Let's
move on to Finster.
How do you take that philosophy and apply that to Finster and the success of that?
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, look, people thought I was a bit mad when I first did this, right? I had a bunch of VCs in 2023 tell me, you've left DeepMind to found an application startup selling to banks. What? I had a VC basically say if I was doing a foundation model company, they would have given me a $50 million seed check. If I, because they were I'm sure you can do RL and foundation models, go build a competitor. What are you doing on the app layer? I feel slightly vindicated because right now it's almost the obvious narrative that the app layer is where there's going to be so much value. And there's been amazing successes in Europe, right? Whether you look at the consumer side like Lovable, or you look at Libora, friend of the show for you guys, it's clear that there's a lot of value to be accrued on the application layer. That is the last mile. There's always going to be the tension of what do the foundation model providers do, and do they do anything on the app layer? And that's always going to be there. For me, finance was interesting for a number of reasons. One, unlike a lot of the other applications layers, I'd say finance and healthcare have this thing in common, legal a little bit as well, of just supremely low margin for error, and really things are at stake. Now, I didn't want to do healthcare for a variety of reasons, and lives at stake is a whole different ballgame. But people have a certain way of doing them. Very smart people work in investment banking and asset management. They will not switch to using an AI product unless there is real value to be gained. This is not just about cost cutting or efficiencies. This is I will eventually make more money as a person if I do this, right? These are people who are very used to optimizing individual interest and P&L. And so our standards need to be really high. The other thing that's great from an AI person's point of view is there's new data every day. There's not a static data set. If it was a marketing thing or an NDA of how do you write an NDA or how do you write a LinkedIn post, that stays true for at least a month, unless regulations change. For finance, the whole reason companies like Bloomberg and FactSet and CapIQ exist is because real-time data generated every day. There's a new earnings today, there's a new earnings call, something's happened. We're used to training our models on 6-month timelines. How do you deal with a world where actually the model's out of date in 10 seconds? if right now Google opens Gap down, the model needs to know immediately that that's happened, why that's happened, what the repercussions are, how it impacts the portfolio, do like second order analysis on what that could mean for other stocks that person's held. Like, so I felt there was a real AI challenge on how do you do real-time data? How do you do that in a compliant and secure way with banks? And how do you build like magical UI interface? Because a lot of the interfaces people are used to are just all dashboards. So we've done in the grand scheme of things, I think we've done very well. It was for me personally, like moving to application was a big change. We've raised, so team was just me and a pitch deck on day one. We're about 20 months in, I'd say now. We're 30 people across London and New York. Our marquee customers are basically large bulge bracket investment banks and asset managers. You go in by selling, hey, I'm going to make some of your grunt work easier. But I think as you go through the stack of use cases, what you're starting to do is add real value by taking whole pieces of work that they would do and kind of automating it. Yeah. So for us, like guiding principles are be very precise, be very accurate, hold ourselves to banking standards, which are different from Silicon Valley standards, right? I think this is the other thing. How do you hold yourself to like banking standards, but moving at the pace of Silicon Valley is the kind of like dilemma every day, which is you can't just build in public. You can't just ship incredibly quickly. You can build incredibly quickly, but then you have to like test and evaluate really thoroughly before you make changes. That's, I think, some of the stuff that we haven't really figured out, but we're making a lot of progress on.
Yeah, I can imagine that's like you kind of have to move at the client's pace, which would be substantially different to, moving it. If you're selling to another startup, for example, it can be done over WhatsApp in an hour. Yeah. What's like the few questions? What's the buying process like from their side? Like who are you selling to, and like how is it a procurement team? Is it basically just like an enterprise deal standard? Like there's legal sign off. You have like a champion.
It's very similar to that. Yeah. I'd say there's good tailwinds of all of these banks are thinking about buying at the moment. So they have dedicated AI teams. They have champions on the business side, the ops side, the kind of CRO side, all of those places. And I think you kind of need to convince all of them at once. I think there's a lot of competition today, right? There's also a lot of movement today. Things change all the time. Anthropic says, we're doing Anthropic for financial services. I think you need to be very clear what your value prop is and what your value add is and what you'll give them that nobody else will give them. But they're still long, right? Sales cycles can be anywhere from 6 months to 2 years based on what you're thinking about. It's also, you're never going to go in with 5,000 users on day one. You're going to go in with a smaller set. You're going to build. You're going to incorporate feedback. And I think that's for us, like the tendency that all startups and humans have is I have a big client. They've said something, so I'm going to change the product to completely do what they've said. That doesn't work if you need to sell to more than that client, right? So I think that how you balance, like, I have this huge account that's telling me they want these 8 things. 4 of those might be in common from what everybody else is telling me, but 4 of them are just incredibly unique to them. The way a lot of people have solved this is with forward deployed engineers. I think the way you solve this is AI, right? The whole point of AI is that, like, Ronan uses ChatGPT, and if you've got memory on, you get a different answer from what if I use it, right? It looks at my context and gives me a completely different thing because it might be that, it might have been a personal question where it's got all this history that I put in. So for us, like, the big thing we're trying to say to clients is personalization comes with AI, not with like us coming in and giving you consultants to build stuff, which is what they're used to. They're used to, like, they buy a product, it needs some work to make it fit for purpose internally, and then they get implementation consultants who do some of that work. Now, AI is not fully ready where it can be completely personalized, but we're getting there.
How do you deal with the context problem where you've got different teams? Say you're in an investment bank, bulge bracket. You have different teams working on different deals and everything, but then you have individual investment bankers obviously working very closely with certain clients, and also they're kind of running their own shop, running their own deals, I guess. How do you work on the context problem where you've got the whole client base, then you have multiple teams, then you have multiple investment bankers all working on different things? Do you work very specifically with one person working on certain deals? How does that even work?
Yeah, so we like to work with multiple teams when we go in. So we won't just do TMT. We'll do kind of, hey, can we have users from TMT, from FIG, from industrials, from CPNG, whatever it is. We also, I think what you're hitting on there is exactly the personalization problem, which is what we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Which is, how does it have the context of who you are and what you want to achieve in the context of what team you're in the context of what organization you're in. Now, some of this is, so like, I'll give you a basic example that's not like, doesn't need loads of AI, but is something we completely do, right? There might be, like, think about generating a Word doc. There might be like a company-wide Word template that has like brand guidelines and colors and fonts and themes. Then there might be in your team certain like charts and tables that you use all the time because it's the way like comparisons are done in your industry. And then there might be specific specific quirks of it that your MD really likes and the way they lay out a document. So for us, we would start by saying, can we ingest examples on the organizational side? Can we then ingest examples from your team? We'll then get feedback on where is it mismatch. Often the mismatch is in one of two places. It's either the user has not given enough context or instructions for the agent to know that like they want it slightly differently, or they have, but our agent's not been powerful enough to pick up on those nuances and differences. I think the solution to both of those things is AI. Like, I don't think humans should have to be prompt engineers. So what we try and say to those, if we find that gap, what we're saying is, hey, can we get more content from your team, or more like precedent past examples, or spend more time understanding what makes your tech unique in a way that we can then explain to the AI. In 6 months or 12 months from now, I don't think any human's going to be involved in that process. I still think there'll be a human involved because people like to see humans, but there will be, the agent will ask you a very simple set of questions when you log in to get a feel for what you're trying to do and then do it that way. And I don't think that's just Finster. I think ChatGPT will move in that direction as well.
Yeah.
Hey, don't write prompts. Just tell me ahead of time, like, I've got access to your calendar. I've got access to your emails. I've got access to your Notion, right? And then I've read through it and I've come to the conclusion that, maybe you guys do, this week you're doing a daily podcast. I think next week you're doing one, 4 times. You've got annual leave booked on this day. Are you sure you don't want me to, this email request has come in. Are you sure you don't want me to move it? Like, that shouldn't require you to do prompt engineering. That should just require having access to all of the information about you as a person, so it can proactively say those things to you. I think that's going to be true on both the consumer side and the enterprise side.
Yeah. Do you think that's the gold star future then for these AI products, working with these enterprise clients, where it's literally like it's humans winning deals and humans kind of being those relationship mechanisms, having that relationship mechanism, and then it's the agent just kind of working on the background as like your brain on that side, that is the thing that probably takes up most of the time anyway.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Right. I think it will be, there's 2 blockers. There's intelligence and there's proactiveness. Those are 2 different avenues. So the more proactive it can get is the stuff that I was saying, right? I looked at your calendar. I'm preparing some meeting prep for you. Oh, like, did you want me to order lunch because you've got a lunch meeting? I'll just have it, dropped off to reception. Like, the more proactive the agent can be, the more it can do with that stuff. And that's not an intelligence barrier. That's just the agentic side. Where the intelligence will become a barrier is like how well it does those tasks. So like, I'll trust it to order me lunch and I'll trust it to write me meeting prep, but will I trust it to write like the entire pitch deck? Maybe not. I'd want to give it a lot of handholding and say, this is how I want you to pitch it. This is exactly what I want you to do. This is like, look at my previous deck. These are the ways I lay out the page. It would still do a very good job, but in the same way an MD or a VP gives the analyst feedback when they're junior, say, do it differently, do it like this, change this stuff. You're going to have to do that with the agent on day one. And then 2 things happen. One, it learns over time. And so we're going to get a lot more like reinforcement learning happening at the application layer, I think, not just on the model layer. Like, users, as they start becoming more comfortable with these bots, allowing it to like learn on themselves, as long as it's very private. But also, as the models get better, the intelligence will be better. So I think of those as like 2 different avenues. how intelligent is this and how proactive is it?
So cool. We've we're sorry to cut it off, but we are out of time.
Dude, I could speak to you all day.
That was so that was such a good conversation.
That was so good, yeah.
All good.
We have to run this back. Sorry, a lot of it was DeepMind focused at first, but yeah, we were just super looking forward to talk to you about that.
No, really appreciate it. Great to be here. Keep doing what you're doing, and we'll chat to you soon.
Mate, absolutely.
For sure.
We'll run
Good
it
luck with
back.
everything.
Cheers.
Cheers, Sid.
Thank you.
Bye. Ciao. Really awesome.
I was like in a trance. That was like
Yeah, that was great. I really wanted to ask more. I wanted to ask about the AlphaGo stuff because that documentary's so good. But I felt a bit bad. So just like DeepMind focus.
DeepMind. Well, I want to talk to him more about that because I think he's obviously like in. There's so many ways to do it. You know, you look at Legora, and I always forget the other legal startup that we had. Vescence.
Yeah.
They're obviously like living next to the lawyer, and obviously very different industries, but fairly similar in the fact that they're dealing with kind of in a very high pressure situation. They're dealing in with clients that if you do get something wrong, it's kind of like game over. And so that's the main thing is don't get something wrong. It's always having to be checked. You can't just keep shipping stuff. But what their way of kind of dealing with it and going deep and making sure that they hit kind of product market fit with these clients is they're working literally side by side with them. And it sounds like that's not what they're doing. It sounds what they're doing is they're kind of going less like client by client, building a model exactly or building a product exactly for that client. It's quite maybe a bit more broad, but what they do is everything that they do is super like refined.
Yeah. They're also at different
Interesting
stages.
way of doing it.
Like,
Yeah, they're
they're
stages.
a bit longer. I think maybe in the early days they were probably operating in a similar way to Vescence, like design partner type style. Like, hey,
We're literally like, why are you having this problem? Oh, it's because of this.
Yeah,
okay, I'll code it.
yeah, can I just
Straight away.
tippity tap?
And then the lawyer's like, whoa, you're a genius. How did you do that? Now my like day is like solved because I don't have to do this menial task that I always do. Or like now I'm not having the problem that I always used to have.
Yeah. I think because there's also like an
interesting.
asymmetric understanding of like where the technology's at, especially in those like legacy areas where like if you do get a cracked kid come in, who's just like right at the frontier of like AI.
I've been doing this for years, but like you've literally just like solved it by building
like
it
they
in, like,
know
an
what
hour.
ChatGPT is maybe, and that's as far.
Well,
as they go.
yeah.
Like, that
I mean,
would
they'll have
blow
their
their
internal
mind.
models. They'll have their own internal models, but which will be built by their own internal AI teams. But it's not as specific as like it's like that's trained on like the whole. If they're working with bulge bracket investment banks, for example, like they're probably trained on the whole. Like I guess data set of the company, not of like specific deals. Whereas a company like Finster are very much dealing in the specifics and getting the specifics like very, very right, and really solving a problem that bulge bracket investment banks, because they want to move fast, will probably pay a lot of money for if it actually
space.
is
Lot of
moving
ched.
the needle. Exactly. Talking about Ched, Airwallex leave outdated business banking behind. The all-in-one financial platform built for the pace of modern business, multi-currency accounts, high-speed international transfers, corporate cards, expense management, and online payments. Where is it?
It's all in one platform.
Let's go.
One platform, guys. Yeah.
Big up to Airwallex. Big up to
Literally in
Airwallex.
one platform.
We love Airwallex. Next on the show, are they in? Do we have them? No way. God, we ran over like a lot.
Co-founder and CPO at Mimic Robotics.
Stefan, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Amazing. We
Can you hear me?
Awesome.
Yeah,
We can hear you loud and clear.
How's it going?
Perfect. Good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're good.
We're doing well.
Having a good show.
We are live and direct right now.
We are.
Welcome to the European Technology Network. We were talking about you guys earlier. We were excited to have you on and hear more about the story, hear more about Mimic, hear more about yourself. Maybe we start with who are you, what is your role, and what is Mimic Robotics as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you very much for having me, Red. It's great to be on the show. So who am I? I am Stefan Grawitz. I'm from Austria, grew up in Vienna, studied electrical engineering in Munich, spent some time in the US, at MIT for some time, and then through that kind of got into the ETH ecosystem afterwards. Then wrote my master thesis here like 4 years ago by now, and then spent some time in research here, and also had like a quick in between stay at a company called BrainLab. So I was working there for about a year in medical devices, essentially as an associate to the CEO, learning a lot about kind of how to build a company essentially, and how to become a founder.
So awesome. And Mimic Robotics itself, like, can you break down what Mimic is, what like the mission is, and then maybe we could go into a few more like specific examples and also the raise as well. I'd love to touch on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do we do here? Essentially, on factory floors around the world, right? There's millions of kind of intricate manual tasks that people are doing with their hands, right? And these all still depend on human skill. And these tasks remain wildly out of reach for traditional automation. And this is completely across a lot of industries, actually. So this applies to manufacturing, this applies to assembly, this applies to logistics. And what we are building is essentially a robotic solution that can tackle these automation challenges, right? So it's essentially a technology that enables robots to handle very, very complex, dexterous tasks that conventional kind of traditional automation cannot handle. And we're particularly kind of laser focused on the frontier physical AI models for dexterous humanoid robotic hands. So essentially this means making, robotic hands and making them intelligent. That's what we do.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I have so many questions. Before I dive into that, like the raise, like there's a lot of, we're seeing, again, I'm not, this is coming from someone who obviously does not sit in the robotic space, but like we have spoken to a few companies and have seen a lot of headlines about a few companies. It seems to be like quite a hot space right now. What was it that, well, first of all, I'd love to know, how did the raise process go? Like, were you guys, was it a bit of a slug? Like, did you have to speak to a lot of people, or does it seem that VCs are they're quite hungry, they have a big appetite for this kind of stuff at the moment?
I mean, I think it's you can see it kind of in the ecosystem a lot, right? Like there's obviously a huge hunger for robotics companies in general right now. There's a lot of hype around this topic for sure. But I think we had a relatively easy time, in comparison. I also don't have a comparison, right? Like the first time I'm raising a seed round, so I don't know. But I think it went really quite smooth, and we had term sheets on the table relatively quickly, and we're super happy with kind of how it went, and also with the lead term sheets that we got.
Yeah. So cool. And like, I have to ask, like, what it feels like if we rewind like a year ago. And again, this is coming from someone who does not sit in the robotic space. So like, I assume that someone who does sit in the robotic space, like you've been working this your whole life, right? But like, what it feels like from someone who's on the outside, it feels like there was a real shift, maybe like a year ago, a year and a half ago. Like in my mind, I think of things like Brett Adcock's figure. Like that was the first one that I kind of saw, and I was like, oh, this is not gone mainstream, but like, this seems to be more in the public eye. Now we're seeing like the 1X robot.
Yeah, it's not as niche. I think it's become a lot more like sexy to build a
which is great.
Company.
Which is a great thing, I think. Yeah. But like, why do you think that is? Like, I don't know why. Like, it's been the last 2 years, maybe from someone who's on the outside looking in. Maybe you know.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting observation. From my perspective, this transition happened a bit earlier, actually, already. Because I always looked at it from more of a kind of technology perspective, right? But looking at the overall ecosystem, for many years, I think robotics companies were kind of fighting an uphill battle of like trying to gain more importance and trying to get the funding. I mean, this applies in general to kind of hardware companies, right? Like for a long time, kind of hardware startups had a more tricky time raising, and I think that's changing now. I think this was actually very much needed in the ecosystem. And my perspective on this is that the main reason all of this is happening is because of the advances in the technology, right? Like this is already some time ago, but I would say like 3 years ago or something, there was a few publications and a few things that really started pointing towards a big change happening kind of in the capabilities of these robotic systems. And once that came, right, I think a lot of researchers were really aware that this is going to pick up pretty soon. And then the whole kind of public media and also the VCs and all of that kind of jumped on that slightly delayed. But it was pretty clear already, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that specifically with the whole advancement of the LLMs, that's going to be highly applicable to, like that technology essentially is going to be highly applicable to robotic systems and essentially, right? And so I think for us, this wasn't a huge surprise. But of course, it's incredible to see the amount of kind of traction that the space is getting, which kind of points towards how, hopefully how quickly we can also deploy, right? I mean, this is the next big question, like, is this actually going to become a reality soon, that we actually see these robots working in factories or not?
Yeah. I want to touch on the product itself and the amazing like dexterity you've been able to like achieve with Mimic Robotics. That's always been like a massive hurdle for robotics, I think. And you seem to have done it with like kind of pre-training via like the human interaction. I don't understand how that works with do you guys have engineers that are like training these robots in the lab, or are you going from like real world examples and training those robots from just kind of, I guess, normal human beings, not like your employees?
Mm-hmm. So typically there is pre-training steps, and then there's kind of fine-tuning steps, right? And for pre-training, there's a lot of current discussions going on kind of real world data. For example, can you apply video data to this type of systems or not, right? Currently, I think the state of the art research is still that teleoperation. So essentially guiding a robot to do something, collecting data that way is kind of the state of the art and is the way of getting the most high quality data, especially for fine tuning. And what's currently happening is that there's a quite big movement. It's kind of like what we call universal manipulation interface, like UMI devices, which is essentially giving a person a device that looks exactly the same as the gripper you're using, right? Or the gripper that the robot is using, right? To collect high quality data. And you can see this on the releases of, there was recently a super cool release by Sunday.ai or what Generalist is doing. A lot of these companies are going kind of down that path. What we're doing is that we're focusing very much on the human hand, right? And the reason we're doing this is because we want to be able to capture the data in factory environments directly from the factory workers that are doing the jobs right now. Because what we believe in is that teleoperation and kind of all of this crazy data effort that you have to put in to collect, this vast amounts of data that you need, that is not really a business case when it comes to manufacturing or assembly and these types of things. Like you can think of it from this perspective that even if you bring a human into that environment, you first have to train them, right, to do a certain thing, typically, right, for an assembly step or in automotive factory or something like this. So there's no surprise that a robot also has to be fine-tuned or trained to learn something like that, right? That's completely natural. And the best data source for that is clearly the factory workers that have been doing this for many, many years. And we're very actively working on technology that essentially enables factory workers to then collect data while they're doing the tasks that they have been doing for a long time, right? And basically essentially give them the opportunity to then fine-tune these robots essentially, right? Or collect the data for the fine-tuning stuff.
And how long do those processes take? Are they like fine-tuning, is that in the word like fine, is it not very long, or does it take a few days, weeks? What is the timeline?
Mm-hmm. So there's two components to this, right? There's the data collection itself, and then there's kind of the training, right? The training you have to do. And both of these take in the amounts of, I would say, a few hours to potentially a few days. So it's not a crazy amount of investment, right? The key goal here is really to get a robot that achieves really high success rates. That's extremely important for industry environment, especially if you think about certification, right? All of these other things. What really are aiming for is a system that essentially can behave the correct way 99.99% of the time, right? And then the data collection effort might be slightly higher, but it's still in the order of like hours to days, not weeks or months.
Yeah. What the data collection thing? Like I think who we spoke to, Voltrak founder at Slush, building the sort of like agricultural / defense like robot car thing that was they were teleoperating them to train or build out like a data set to use to train the model at first, I think. And he was telling us that like the human who is controlling it via it's like a steering wheel kind of thing, but I can't remember if it was like a controller, but it would essentially like map out. They'd be recording on the car, and it would be linked to like if the individual who was training it on the controller, maybe let's just say for example, push the joystick up, then like an up arrow would appear on like the data receptor or whatever. So you could like correlate where the robot made an adjustment based off like what the actual movement was from the joystick. Like, are you guys like how does that data collection type of thing work with the arms? Are you like recording humans do the job and then try and pass that through to the mimic robots, or?
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting observation. So this is actually key to making the system work, is that you have to provide. I actually don't know if I fully understood the point you made about the truck driving, but from my perspective, the point that I'm going to make is that it's very, very important to provide the model and the data collector with the same amount of information. Like essentially the interface that the data collector gets while they're collecting data should not be more than what the AI model has, right? Because the assumption is that if the data collector can solve that task while getting a certain amount of information, also the model should be able to do it, right? And I think and there's obviously a bit of a friction point there, right? Because these models run on camera systems, basically mostly vision-based, and the question is, how do you kind of transfer that onto a factory worker that potentially doesn't want to wear a VR goggle the whole day to be restricted in what they see, for example, right? Obviously, that's not the solution, right? And so these are I think, really interesting research points that where our kind of core expertise is in how to do that, right? Like in which parts of the data is important to match one-to-one, where can you be a bit more flexible and these sort of things, and how do you make a system that is comfortable for a factory worker to use so that they actually accept that solution, right? Because it's very important that a factory worker actually says, agrees to or is open to use this type of data collection system.
Yeah. And is that, I guess that's...
Does that answer your question? Sorry.
It's different to what, I guess, I've probably explained it badly, what the team of Voltrak are doing. Like, I'm sure they're doing the right thing if my thing seemed it was like compromise the data set. But like going to what you say about like the individuals who are in these factories right now, is this like a design partner relationship? Is it similar to how you'd run like an early software startup in a way where it's like, you work with said large manufacturing company and they offer like, hey, like you can maybe train or get training data from the employees in the factory, and what they have to like wear a camera, I guess, maybe to like video record.
Right, so they essentially have this type of like, let's call them exoskeleton tracking systems, plus camera devices that then collect the data essentially, right? And yes, absolutely. So we have collaborations with multiple manufacturing companies that allow us to collect data on site essentially with the workers. And I think this is I think a lot of these companies, maybe to also touch on the market side a bit, because I also think it's very, very, very interesting. A lot of these larger corporations, you can tell that they're understanding that this technology is coming up, right? And they're really trying to understand better the kind of implications for the factory environment and how they can best apply it essentially, right? And so they're actually really open to explore that together with us, and also to do these type of data collection steps. And I think one part where we're really, really strong in is that we are starting to establish a very strong data moat on a few very particular kind of industrial tasks where we're hopefully gonna advance more and more and kind of increase our data moat more and more over the next months and years.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And so like that's obviously like the main focus when you are kind of collecting this data. I think a lot of the like what we're seeing in robotics and the people that we're talking to, it's kind of like you're either training in like a very high controlled environment, or you're training in like an environment that's pretty open. So like say for example, I mean this is probably not maybe the example to use, but say like a Wave, right, who are creating autonomous vehicles. they want to train not just in a, like on an airfield going around cones, but what they do want to do is put it into a real life example. And then you can also see with like the Neo 1X robot, it's like they're doing everything whole stack. So it's it's a proper humanoid. Whereas for you guys, it's more, the focus is a controlled environment, if that makes sense, and it's like one thing. How does that change the training data that you're collecting, whether it's going from one general scenario and it's more of a general kind of humanoid, I guess, compared to like something it's got a specific task and a specific kind of like use case for one particular manufacturer, for example?
Yeah. So maybe to touch on the form factor first and kind of our general approach, that's actually 100% correct. So our approach from the start has always been to be, let's say, quite focused on the use cases that we want to solve, because I think it's a very general, like essentially, from a business development perspective, it's hands, right? And you can apply it to so many different problems, right? You can do household tasks, you can do logistics, you can do manufacturing, you can go into pharma. Really, you can do many, many different things with them. And so our strategy has been to really try to be very market focused and try to establish like a data, and to answer your question, right? It's very important to be quite specific there, right? Because you're going to establish like a data mode in a certain area, right? With a certain type of task, with like a certain kind of subset of tasks. And the big question is like, does the data from one company transfer to tasks that are being done somewhere else, right? And this is something where we're really trying to be very focused on a specific subset of, for example, assembly tasks that can only be solved with the technology that we have, right? That are too complex to solve essentially with traditional automation. And the comparison to humanoid robotics is also something where we very specifically say we don't build a humanoid, right? We actually don't believe so much in the humanoid form factor for industrial environments. And why is that? Because I mean, the very simple or like stupid answer to that is you don't need legs to walk around in a factory environment, right? Most of these environments are flat, and it's a big question of certification, right? And safety, and how fast you can actually deploy these systems at scale, these highly complex humanoids in these types of environments, right? And I think for the home use case, totally feasible, right? It's the best solution. But for factory environments, using off-the-shelf robotic arm systems, concentrating 100% on the gripper hardware, essentially on the hands, and making that system intelligent, we have seen that a lot of customers react very, very positive to that idea, because they've been maybe slightly burned by just throwing humanoids at any problem they have, essentially. Right?
But that's interesting. Now correct me if I'm wrong, but like even other robotics companies who maybe are building like full-scale humanoid robots would be interested in talking to you guys, right? If you can like master the hands, like with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like that's interesting. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
the market just
opens up. But I think we're also full stack. We're definitely a full stack company, right? So we it's very, very beneficial for us to be super close to the end customer. Maybe in the foreseeable future, there is the path of actually selling that technology, of course, or becoming a partner with a different company that then uses our technology stack to increase their capabilities, for example. But for now, we're learning together with the customers, essentially, right? How to get these success rates up. And then you have to work with the end customer. It's super important that you own the end customer, that you're able to go there in person, collect data on site, all of these things. Like you have to have that entire stack. It only works that way, right? If we would say right now we're building hands and that technology stack for humanoids, that's the wrong approach, for sure.
That's awesome, though. Damn, that's that's fascinating. I mean, I have so many more questions, but we're 1 minute over.
Yeah, dude, thank you so much for coming.
That was very much like a learning opportunity for me. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming on the European Technology Network. We'll have to catch up.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
And find out how things are going in a couple of months.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Good stuff.
Pleasure.
Great to meet you.
Ciao.
Amazing stuff.
That's so interesting, because like, couldn't you sell? Yeah, I guess you wouldn't want to sell the specific technology too early.
Well, if you were selling it, then people will buy it. Yeah, who want to know? Yeah, they would just rip it apart and be like, "What are they building?"
Yeah,
you've got to be semi-careful with that kind of stuff, because I'm sure there'll be licenses that their manufacturers will have some form of contract to sign that they're not allowed to do something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. Like if they master the hand, like dexterity is like the biggest thing to win at, and seems like Mimic are pretty close.
Yeah.
Which is quite cool. And yeah, I mean, I haven't like. Brett Adcock is always like posting more stuff on X about
his ghostwriter, dude. Like
all the stuff that's going on.
It's the ghostwriter.
It must be, yeah.
How is he sitting down and being like, well, here's the top 5 trends, like, but it's like guys running massive companies, like he doesn't have time to.
No, but when I wasn't talking about that, more what I was talking about was his like the videos of the Figure robots, like you know, folding clothes, and then it, like because the copy isn't massive, right? It's literally one liner being like, I don't know, like Figure robot folds clothes in 12 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is super fair, but yeah, I think we should talk about the video that went semi-viral. Kanishka Narayan, the MP.
Oh yeah, that video did go kind of viral.
I don't know if we can pull it up. I feel like we should watch it on stream. If we can, can we get sound?
I'm not sure if we can get sound, can we, for the videos that we pull up?
Can you? We can put subtitles. Oh, it's got subtitles.
Oh, does it? Wait, can I pull this one up now?
It's up. Is it up? I don't know.
It's coming up now. Can they hear this or no? It does have subtitles. It's a bit sad.
Yeah, that's a bit boring. Okay, well, anyway, maybe let's read it out. Some politicians love to talk the UK down, but UK AI and tech is moving at 100 miles an hour. Time to shift the narrative.
Shift is in.
So last night, I started building a scrappy real-time dashboard to track the UK AI story, VibeShift.uk. It's not quite ready to go yet, which is sad, but hey, he's still building. The code is on my GitHub if you want to help build it out. And then he posted a very English launch video. I guess this is a launch video, maybe. 150k views
for sure. Cool. I think it's cool. It's cool, and to do a
more power to do that.
Also did a tweet on this. Shout out my own tweet.
Oh, you did a tweet.
But it's cool though. It's like it is a vibe shift. It is a narrative change. It is, and it's there not in just the way that Kanishka is saying it's time to shift the narrative, but it's there in a way where it's unpolished. It's scrappy. He's using insider like slang and knowledge. He
must be the first UK MP to have a GitHub repository.
Yeah, probably.
Surely.
Like, even the opening bit where he's like, everyone knows it. When you want to get more data, it's the dashboard meme. Like that was like trending a few weeks ago. But he's obviously seen it or been told to include it. Whatever it is, it shows like a self-awareness of what is like culturally relevant right now. It's a cultural win, I think, which is really cool to see, especially from someone in government. Very, very, very
so it's cool.
Rare.
It's cool.
So huge fans. And it kind of brings us on to maybe let's talk a bit about what we're seeing at the moment in the UK with I think James Wise' recent appointment.
Let's do it.
Can we pull that one up as well? The James Wise. Let me try and find,
because this is with Kanishka as well.
Yeah. Which is really cool. We just wait to get this one up. We're good. So James Wise tweets out, there are world-leading AI companies being founded in Britain, but we can do so much more. Today, I'm delighted to be announced as chair of the UK government's sovereign AI unit, backed by almost £500 million in investment to help build and scale AI capabilities on British shores. This is a new type of government initiative, one which aims to be the first choice of partner for founders, building essential parts of the UK's AI infrastructure, growing our economy. One which will use the awesome power of the British state to help scale our AI breakthroughs, and one which aims to make a meaningful return for the British taxpayer. Our boy James. Standing on business.
He is very much standing on business.
Did he go 33k?
The UK government obviously released. He had a comment to make, and I think it's important to shine a light on it. He said, "I'm excited to start as chair of the UK's Sovereign AI Unit, which will launch next year. This will be a new type of government fund, one which aims to be the first choice for founders building essential parts of the UK's AI infrastructure and economy. One which uses the awesome power of the British state to help scale our AI breakthroughs, and one which aims to make a meaningful return for the British taxpayer. I look forward to working with the team to build and launch this fund in the coming months in this critical area of technology." Seriously bullish on the fact that he is using his position that he's built over his time at Boulderton to help on a macro scale, to help the UK on a macro scale, which is just it's wicked. I commend him. It's awesome.
He's done some work with.
He's done some work already, for sure.
Yeah, with Downing Street in general. But it's bullish. It's so bullish, right? Like,
I mean,
individuals like James.
You can even see from the comments of the tweet.
Getting hyped.
It's big stuff. Like Matty at Levin Labs saying congrats.
Nice.
A load of other big names kind of saying congrats and look forward to kind of this being like the next like shift. So it's super exciting.
It's great news. It's
Just like news coming out of Europe / the UK all the time. It's great.
No, it's great. It is great. It's something we should maybe just a quick round of applause for James. Actually,
big up James,
friend of the show.
But should we do a quick word on our sponsors?
You need to get smoother on that.
Sorry. Quick word on our sponsors: Airwallex. Leave outdated business banking behind. The all-in-one financial platform built for the pace of modern business. Multi-currency accounts, high-speed international transfers, corporate cards, expense management, and online payments, all on one platform. Go to airwallex.com to go and sort everything banking related. It's the only place. It's got to be done. Next on the show, in 1 minute, we have Tim Levine. I don't know if he's on now. Is he on? We could get him on now. Let's do it.
Should we just bring him on in?
Bring him on in.
Where?
Timmy,
I lost my screen there.
Tim, can you hear me?
You're loud and clear, guys.
Amazing. How's it going, Tim? Really nice to meet you.
Likewise, good to see you both.
Yeah, likewise. Well, I think we should start with an introduction from you, and then we can go from there. We've got a bunch of questions, but we like our guests to kind of explain who they are and what they're doing.
Perfect. Well, Ronan, Luke, great to be on the show. Tim Levine, CEO and founder of Augmentum FinTech. I guess I've been knocking around the UK European tech scene for just completed my 26th year, not that I'm counting.
So that deserves a round of applause in itself.
Although somebody recently referred to me as a grizzled veteran, and I didn't know if that was a backhanded compliment or not. So
I think that's...
I'll take...
Yeah, I think that's good.
I'll take whatever compliments I can get in these markets. So I was one of the founding team of a business called Flutter, which became Betfair, which became arguably the UK's first unicorn in the early noughties. And then I guess decided that I wanted to change seats and become a venture investor. I think the challenge for me back in 2009 and 10 was that European venture lacked operator entrepreneurial DNA. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of professional investors, but not a lot of people that had been there on the journey and come out the other side. So that for me was the motivation. And the last 15 years has been, I guess, still defining myself as an entrepreneur, building up Augmentum, becoming a specialist fintech investor. We've invested as a team collectively in over 100 fintechs in Europe. Currently, we've got 27 in the portfolio. And I think what really stands us out is we're the UK's only publicly listed fintech fund. So this is an asset class that we've opened up not just to public market investors, but in particular retail investors who really, it's very hard for them to get diversified exposure to high growth fintech. So the challenge was, can we disrupt the model a little bit? And that we've done. 7 years as a public company, not a straight line, full of challenges. And I would say the London markets are not straightforward, but we're on a journey. And it's a lot of fun building these businesses with many of our founders.
Yeah, that's awesome. Super interesting. Maybe quite an obvious question, but kind of what's the difference between like a private kind of 10-year, I guess, timescale fund compared to an Augmentum where it's more, it's more patient capital that's like, public kind of money flowing into these private companies?
So I think that's exactly the word, patient capital. I think one of the frustrations I had when I first launched Augmentum back in 2010 was the finite lifespan of the fund, but also the pressure on an emerging manager to deliver a track record so they can raise the next fund. And I think you create these kind of perverse incentives where you're in a hurry to build that track record and get an exit, but fundamentally that's not always in the long-term interest of your underlying LPs. And I think we've seen many examples of an emerging fund take money off the table early just so they can go and raise that next fund. Had they held on to it, then I think you'd have a very different outcome. I think we've got some very high-profile fintechs that were in funds that have been kind of bought in the secondary market. So I think for me, the opportunity to have a structure that is permanent capital, where we can recycle those realizations. We're not in that perennial fundraising merry-go-round, and we can just hold on as and when it makes sense to hold on. But at the same time, if there's an early exit that makes sense, then we'll do that and go again. And I think we've seen that where we've had a couple of opportunities where, the opportunity to take money off the table after 18, 24 months clearly wasn't the plan. But it certainly made sense on paper, and then we can go again. And ultimately, for us, we want to be inextricably aligned with our shareholders, make decisions based on the long term that fundamentally drive maximum returns.
Yeah. Go. Sorry. Cut you off.
No, I've just asked one. So
I wanted to ask, so you guys have backed winners like Zopa, Tide, Awoka. What are you seeing, like common traits in these winners? Is there a trend? If we knew the trend, we'd all be millionaires, billionaires. But what are you seeing? Are there any similarities between these two?
I think it all boils down to people. I think I often ask what are the characteristics that make a great founder or a great team of founders, and fundamentally, I think it does come down to you need an exceptional team. You need that DNA clearly of resilience. Of course, you need a great idea. I'm struggling to think of great teams that have had average ideas that have built billion or multi-billion-dollar businesses. Very few poor teams have built multi-billion-dollar businesses. You need both. And fundamentally, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that needle in a haystack. There's a lot of noise. I think we're just looking at a report that talked about 37,000 fintechs in the market currently. Only 100 are generating north of $500 million ARR in a year. We've got now, I think, 3. So that's a pretty good outcome. There's a long way to go, but these things, as we know, are not overnight success stories. And I think, one of the challenges, and it's not a particularly fashionable approach, but is to sometimes be really contrarian and to look through the noise and find that business that perhaps has had a false start, was an early mover, but has learned from those kind of challenges and then really built on that. And if I look at the best return we've ever had, we backed a business called Interactive Investor, online self-discretionary share and investment platform. That business was around when we started Flutter back in '99 and had listed, delisted, had kind of disappeared into the ether, and then really relaunched many years later. And we invested probably back in about 2014, I would say, $2 million for a 10% stake. And, that was a business that Aberdeen bought for $1.5 billion a couple of years ago. Yeah. So wow. It was fallen angel, digital dinosaur, you name it. I think it had pivoted the strategy. Investors had come and gone, but we felt the moment back in 2014 was there for someone to really build that digital first self-directed platform, and they had the brand to be able to do that. There were lots of kind of challenges along the way, but they executed incredibly well. And so sometimes you need to really look under the hood and not pick the obvious answer to kind of deliver that outsized return.
Wow, that's a nice
I didn't actually realize you guys invested into Interactive Investor. That's pretty mental. Awesome story. I want to touch on the risk appetite in there. So obviously you're backing a business that's you mentioned that it delisted and it kind of gone into the ether and who knows with a business like that you don't know what's going to happen. And the story looks, I guess, fairly bleak in at that point in time. When you're dealing with public investors, I guess when you're a private fund, you've got LPs who understand the world and they understand the kind of risk nature of venture investing. When you have public investors, how do you feel like that changes the way that you, one, communicate with those investors and also communicate with, the performance of the fund and how, or the performance of kind of just Augmentum in general? How do you kind of navigate that? Because I feel like that's very, very different, working with public investors compared to working with LPs who understand the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing challenge. I think fundamentally, when we IPO'd the fund back in 2018, it was about opening up the opportunity to a much broader set of investors, retail investors in particular, but articulating this, you're taking early stage risk. And by the way, this is going to be a long-term journey. You've got to kind of sit and take that risk and ride it out, and probably cast judgment on how good we are several years down the line. So, we're 6-7 years in. So let's say, 10 years on, that's the time to really get a good look under the hood. But of course, we report twice yearly. There's nowhere to hide. You have the inevitable J curve. You have periods of dips. You have things like COVID where valuations fly up, and then you have 2022 and beyond where you see major sell-offs. So you have to kind of ride that volatility, but you have to kind of really, hold true to your beliefs. You have to be consistent with your messaging, which we've always been. This is a strategy that we're going on. Be quite transparent, and I think that's one of the challenges of being a publicly listed fund that focuses on venture, where the market is scrutinizing your valuations on a more frequent basis. We trade, so our net asset value, we trade at about 50% discount at the moment in a very difficult London market. So, I mean, the joke I make is that it's Black Friday, 50% off. So, that is the challenge. And of course, shareholders are looking at the share price day to day and saying, well, hang on a second, if the value of the portfolio is £1.60, why are you trading at 80p?
Yeah, so
and you just got to sit there and say, look, don't look at this in the short term. Yeah, over the long term, we believe the realizations will be there. The companies will be built. We've already shown that we can build from a very low base in terms of both valuation and size of company to really kind of big businesses. And we think we've got the longevity, the track record, the experience, the grizzled veterans amongst the youth as well to really deliver that. But it is about consistently delivering that message, because I would say in this environment, investors have become increasingly more short-term in their view. Venture is a long-term risky asset class. And we all know about the power law effect. We all know about the ability to pick winners. And the winners that you think on day one often are the ones that turn out to be those return drivers. So I think that's the challenge. And I think when you've got normal, traditional LPs, you sit there and say, look, we'll report to you yearly. They understand the asset class. They'll measure you a few years down the line. Not as easy in the public markets, especially in a difficult market environment where people are looking at the share price rather than the underlying performance. So, messaging is really important. We've got probably around 5,000 retail investors. So there's always a handful that like to email me on a regular basis to express their views. Not always most constructive, but I would say the vast majority are super supportive. And we've got institutional investors as well, large wealth managers, small cap fund managers, pension funds, and the like, large family offices. So they're there alongside the retail.
Yeah, that's good you mentioned pension funds. We've had a few talks recently when we're talking kind of like macro, like trends of, the EU and the UK, I guess, are really good at the kind of early stage, but then kind of less so on the growth stage, because maybe pension funds and the really kind of big hitters in the capital sense aren't risk on, right? Are you guys, have you felt that there's a struggle in kind of, I guess, getting these pension funds and large capital holders like involved in something as risky as like venture investing, or is that, do you guys not feel that? What's the deal there?
No, we feel it, and we've spent the last decade trying to convince UK pension funds that they're extraordinarily underweight to UK venture and have missed a huge opportunity in one of the best performing asset classes, globally, which has been European venture. And I think they are massively underweight. I'm going to get the number wrong, but their allocation, if we add it all up, is something like 0.007% allocation.
Mental.
When I think weighted it should be around 5%. So there are initiatives such as the Mansion House Compact, the Mansion House Accord, which is all about encouraging UK pension funds to increase their allocation to growth assets, to venture assets. And I would say there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of enthusiasm. What we're not seeing is that capital flow into the sector. And that's a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for the UK venture community. It's a huge opportunity for UK pension funds whose returns are underperforming their North American or Antipodean peers. So Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand pension funds have better returns. That arguably, I think the data proves it, is because they're better allocated with a bigger allocation to venture and private equity. And guess what? That means that if I'm an Australian pensioner, I could retire 7 years earlier than a UK pensioner because the compounding effect kicks in. So the numbers are stuck. The opportunity is huge. I think the next 3 to 4 years is an incredibly important opportunity for UK pension funds to get behind UK Venture PLC, get behind our public markets, get behind our very best of private equity, and really support the growth agenda. It's very hard for this sector to scale to its full potential without their support.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, public call out to the pension funds and the decision makers.
First. I'd love to just change topics to. I'd love to know more about Flutter merging with Betfair, founding story there. Any fun tidbits for us? That would be. I'd love to hear more.
Well, it was, I think I have always had a burning desire to be an entrepreneur in an era where being an entrepreneur wasn't very fashionable, and brought horror to my parents who said you got a good education, you went to university, joined Bain, you got a good job. And I studied Russian. I moved to Moscow in the early 90s, worked with Bain there, moved to Sydney, spent 3 years in Sydney working with Bain, and then decided, as many of my peers at Bain were going off to business school, I just really thought the idea of doing 2 years of study when I had this burning desire to build something on my own was too great. So I moved back to London. Before Flutter, I actually started the first juice bar in the UK. So it's a business that became known as Crush. I opened the first store in Canary Wharf when it was a bit of a ghost town in the late 90s. And that was a good example of don't be right too early. So, healthy eating. I kind of had a mission of health by stealth. This was when Pret and Starbucks were entering the market. So it was, good idea, well executed, but ultimately too early, and I got distracted by this thing called the internet, which was keeping me up at night in terms of the huge opportunity. And a couple of guys I used to work with at Bain came to London. A guy called Josh Hanna and Vince Monocle had just left Bain. They'd been at Stanford, and they had this idea and they pitched it to me to say, look, eBay is a business that's growing really quickly, and we think we can create the eBay of betting. We can't do it in the US because there's a lot of legal issues. We want to do it in the UK. Why don't you come and do this with us? So I said, yeah, it sounds interesting. And I said, look, we've got to brainstorm this. So we went to Vegas, as you do when you want to start a gambling business. So we hired a villa on the golf course in Vegas for a week. And there were 6 of us, and we spent the week genuinely, and we didn't do much gambling, I would say, brainstorming the business. There were 5 Americans and me. And I said to them, look, we got to call this business, catchy name. And this was the start of, the online betting industry. And what was beautiful about what we were going to do, we were disintermediating the bookmakers. We were going to be the exchange, peer-to-peer. I don't know if you guys have been following Polymarket, but ultimately, Flutter was Polymarket 26 years ago. That's what it was. And I remember talking to Shane when he was starting the business. He said, I want to hear all about Flutter. I want to do it now. So that's for another time. And I said to the guys, we're going to call this Flutter because it's the slang for betting in the UK. And 5 of them spent the next hour trying to say the word Flutter. But of course, they called it Flutter, F-L-U-D, Flutter. Why do you call it Flutter? So they agreed eventually that we were going to call it Flutter. And of course, in the late 90s, getting URLs, it was just .com, really. That's what you needed. And Flutter.com was owned by a garage Canadian band called The Flutter. And I remember we called up these guys. We got their number. Said, we want to buy your URL from you. And literally, we said, how's $10,000? And they said, done. So we bought the URL from The Flutter. We gave them The Flutter, and they took the $10,000, and we got Flutter.com. And then we needed Flutter.co.uk. And the guy that owned that is a guy called Daniel Levy. And I don't know if you're football fans, but he was the chairman of Tottenham Hotspur for many years, and recently has been moved on. I think he owns about a third of Spurs. But he was working with ENIC back then. They had some gambling interests in Victor Chandler, a very old-fashioned, well-known European, I'd say UK or Irish bookmaker. And that was a tougher negotiation. So ended up having to pay him. He is a tough negotiator. If you ever tried to buy a player from Spurs, you know how hard it is to negotiate with Daniel Levy.
Yeah, definitely not 10K.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the start of Flutter, which we launched in April 2000. But we raised money in the absolute height of the .com boom. So we were 420-somethings, very good at PowerPoint, very poor at running a business because we didn't know much about it. And we raised $24 million on a 20-page PowerPoint. So we talk about the AI boom, but for those of us around in 99 and early 2000, the internet boom, the fundraising, to be able to raise $24 million on a $100 million plus valuation back then with a business with nothing, no prototype, that was kind of an exciting time. And then obviously the market crashed. I think about February, March 2000. We launched in April 2000. We had huge ambitions, and after about 6 months, I think we were about 1% of where our projections were. So we were failing miserably. So I think it was a humbling moment of, gosh, we're good at fundraising, but we're really bad at execution. So the first 6 months were a challenge, 99% behind, but we had plenty of money. And we were somewhat unfairly known as the Yanks with the banks, despite the fact that I wasn't the Yank. The other 3 main founders were all Americans. And Betfair was going about its business with a similar idea, but just executing much better than us, with a twist on the concept on a fraction of the capital. And I think it became quite clear that putting the 2 businesses together, exchanges thrive on liquidity. That was the opportunity, which took us a little while, but probably about 12 months later, in 2001, we put the 2 businesses together. And I think that's where we talk about network effects. Betfair is one of those businesses that had exceptional network effects, where when we put the 2 businesses together, we hadn't appreciated the market depth and demand for the product was much greater than we thought. So we'd hit year 3 business plan for that merge business in 6 months. So it just really kind of took off, and it was a lot of fun. We were winging it. We were launching in multiple markets in an era where there was a lot of uncertainty about online gambling regulation. For example, in France, when we launched in France, they were trying to interpret 1890s legislation to the internet. So there was a lot of challenges along the way, a lot of fun, a lot of mistakes made, but it was an era where you could get away with making a lot of mistakes because growth just masked some of those huge inefficiencies. And it was a business model which you could absolutely turbocharge with growth, and unit economics were great.
Yeah, I think once you get a ball rolling like that, like it's just like a fire that you just keeps like catching. And
that is so interesting.
It's a cool story.
Locked away then. That is. I love how early at the start of the story, it's like we needed to brainstorm, so we went to Vegas.
And then raised 24 mil.
So cool.
Was it $100 million valuation? That was valuation.
Well, I'll tell you a story about the $100 million valuation. So there was a very large global bank, and everybody was jumping up and down to try and get into this hot startup called Flutter. And we were heavily oversubscribed. And we originally were going to raise $15 million on $100 million valuation. And we're oversubscribed, and we're sitting around the table, and there were 3 of us in the room from Flutter, and then just a large number of bankers, many who didn't quite know what the internet was. And when they asked what the valuation was, they said, what's the valuation? I said, 100 million. And they said dollars or pounds. And that was the moment where I looked across the room, and I said, well, pounds, of course. And that was and they said, okay, that's fine. And in that split second, we managed to increase the valuation. Back then, I probably was a better exchange rate than 130 to a pound. It probably was 150, 160. Yeah. So we increased the valuation in that split second, and went back to those and said, look, you're in, but here's the price now. It's pounds, not dollars. So it was an era of excess, but obviously, as I said, we got our comeuppance. So we all thought we were heroes until it became clear that we weren't. But that's the way you learn along the way.
That's exactly. We're doing the exact same.
We're just figuring out as we go along. So that's a nut story.
Yeah, that's such a cool story.
We are unfortunately out of time.
Yeah,
it's such a shame. I've really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for coming on, Tim. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'd love to have you back.
Likewise, great to chat with you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good stuff. Really good to meet you.
Cheers, Tim.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers, guys.
That's amazing. That's so cool. Thanks, Roy. We need to brainstorm off to Vegas. I love that.
And then raises 24 million.
24 mil. That is mad.
Valuation.
I guess back then it is like, because you can kind of picture that now a little bit like AI. Insane. Well, the thing is, OpenAI teams, their Centropic teams, like they could go into a room and say we're starting a new model.
Fine.
Cool. Here's a bill. Nuts. But you can kind of you can still picture it back then, like .com boom. A lot of these, and again, this is just me guessing, but VC probably looks a lot different back then than it does today in terms of these specialized verticals, in terms of these experts.
Well, there was just less. It was more cowboy-esque, right?
More more bankers, right? More like finance guys or investment guys. So the asymmetrical information was probably nuts in terms of eBay raising nuts amount of money, Yahoo raising nuts amount of money. It was probably just
these guys now being we're going to be the eBay for betting. Bang, done.
But that's the thing, it's cool. Here's how much money. What is it? Oh, it's pounds, not dollars. Cool, no problem. Here's an extra
here's whatever you need. Go and build it. What's also cool is that 24 mil pre-seed is that. That's a massive pre-seed now.
Was it pre-seed?
Well, it was
it was the first raise. Yeah,
it was the first raise, and they raised. He said that they had.
Pounds as well.
Him and the team and a PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
It's we were good at PowerPoints, but we didn't ever.
It's 5 guys from Bain.
That's what I'm. That's what I'm saying. So it's wild that it's literally that's a big round now. It's a really big round. And when he said 24 mil, I don't know. It just seems wild that was a thing back then.
That's her. That was
very cool.
That was a
really cool story.
Choose Past
And
always
just a
cool as
wicked guy as well. Really
well.
cool. We should talk about. We should talk a little bit more about Slush. I feel like we haven't had enough time to talk about it. We've got 4 minutes. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Cool.
Just before we do, quick word from our sponsor, Airwallex. Leave outdated business banking behind. The all-in-one financial platform built for the pace of modern businesses. All in one platform. Go to airwallex.com.
They've got these beautiful bucket hats as well.
Yeah, they're great. I assume they might give them to their customers. Who knows? But so Slush. Let's talk about it. Slush was an awesome experience. It took me a while to like get over it.
What do you think, Luke?
It was cool. It was so cold, but it was great.
Actually, it wasn't that cold.
It was, dude.
It
You
was
like
cold,
stepped
but,
out, and it was to your bones cold. Maybe it's just because I need to put a bit more
timber on.
Bit more timber on.
Like a winter gut, maybe.
It was great. We got mogged by Sigil, which was awful. But then I mogged him back, so it's fine.
What did you say? I thought that was more like playful
Semi-mogged.
camaraderie as opposed to mogged.
I'm feeling mogged by Sigil.
He was awesome. Great to meet him in person. Really cool. I love how he opened.
Who was the coolest? Who was the coolest? No, I don't want to say coolest, but like, who was the most interesting?
One that we enjoyed.
The one that we enjoyed. What was the chat
I think obviously when Manny and
that was
and
just
Elias crashed.
No, when Manny crashed.
Elias's interview. Sorry, that was that was awesome.
And like I didn't really get because like I was emailing Elias like obviously beforehand to like coordinate a few bits. Didn't realize Manny was there. Didn't realize a ton of people were there. That like you bumped into Max at Lagora. I didn't get to chat to him because we were running because we were obviously late to our filming sesh, which was always fun. But we. I was like chatting to Elias on, I think email. I don't know if I have his WhatsApp, but email, and it's quite hard to know. It's quite formal because it just naturally is. Especially me. Like I want to, I don't want to just
you formal
be brash.
Emails. Do you want best or not?
No, but like I wasn't. Sometimes like I'll just. We're writing one-liners to each other. It wasn't like hi.
It was the founder like lowercase first letter.
But but I just didn't. I didn't get like how much of a boy he is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then when I met him, I was like, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
His energy was on Manny. He was having a great time, and we were having a great time. So I think that chat was cool. Obviously loved the chat with Sigil. Lucy at Airwallex. Shout out to Airwallex. That was
so
cool
good we got
chat.
time.
That was mega interesting as well.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it, watch the like preview or the snippet.
I think we should put the full episode live. Actually, the full.
Yeah, we'll go the full episode live. So that was really cool, and just an honor to meet someone who's built like a company of that size and of that kind of like that's an amazing company. So shout out to them. And I'm genuinely not just saying that because they're our sponsors. But
the graph is nuts. The hockey stick growth graph is.
It's just sick. Yeah, it's cool.
Which she talks about in the interview, which is really fascinating.
And
also
cool.
the Stripe acquisition rejection, which is really cool. She was just like,
go
if we've taken the acquisition,
Airwallex doesn't exist anymore.
3 years in, she was like, we'll be like APAC, we'll be Stripe's APAC department, which isn't a bad thing, but she's like, that's just not my mission.
That's just not.
What do I do then? She's like, it was like, we were in like, it's my baby stage.
Yeah.
And how is she just going to give up the baby? But no, Slush, I had a great time.
We've just got a quote tweeted actually from a clip from Lucy at Airwallex from our conversation. Martin Prince, thank you very much. Great company, and she seems very sharp. Indeed, she's built $1 billion ARR company. She knew her stuff, and it was like I wanted to make sure I was asking good questions because I didn't want like she's probably just gonna be like, these guys, like, they just don't know what they're talking about.
We had to step correct.
Yeah. I was like, right, I've got to like turn it on and make sure.
But I think it went really well. I think it was good conversation.
6 hours of live streaming is tough. If you ever do that in your lifetime,
nuts.
ping us because we've got some stuff in common. It's a hard thing to do. Very hard thing to do.
Sorry, I'm just even remembering it is making me
making you tired. Yeah, clearly. So last on the show, we have Florian Heinemann. He is the founding partner of Project A. He is everything product marketing genius. We're going to talk to him about
like data-driven growth and all of that kind of stuff. It's going to be cool. Do we have Florian on? Amazing.
Florian,
can you hear us?
In the house, I think.
I can hear you guys. Can you hear me as well?
Yes, we can hear you. How's it going? Really nice to meet you.
Oh, good. Oh, great.
So good to have you on the show. Florian, we've been told through others that you are the godfather of venture in Germany. Would love to know why that is.
You probably have to ask the others, no? But I guess it's just a question of been around for quite some time, and the venture scene in Germany when I started, which was kind of 2000, and so I was a founder in 1999, but then became kind of an investor in 2007. I guess there weren't too many people around in 2007. I think there was like Early Bird and HV and I think Target Partners was already here, and Acton, or back then Border Ventures, but most of the venture funds that you know today weren't around. So I guess that's the main reason. Oh, I forgot Headline. Headline was already around. They were called back then. They were called eVenture or even like BV Part. But I think that were just very few people, and I was with Rocket and which was one of the major players back then. Was a managing director there. But I guess it was significantly easier to stick out than it is today. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of noise. We just had Tim Levine at Augmentum FinTech on, the UK's only publicly listed VC, and he was saying the same. It's like there's a ton of noise. There's like 37,000 fintechs in the UK, and only 100 have, or maybe in the world, I can't remember, but only 100 have 500 million in ARR, and then they back like 3 of them that are like true kind of winners.
Doing good work.
So yeah, there's a lot.
Before I know I kind of jumped the gun. I had to ask that question, the Godfather question, straight off the bat. But maybe, Florian, for the listeners, are you able to introduce yourself and your position and also Project A, if that would be okay?
Yeah, sure. Just real quick. I never had a proper job in my life, so I started as a founder in 1999. The older ones among you might remember that. That was basically when in Europe, kind of the startup ecosystem kind of started like 97, 98. And I started in 99, was a founder for quite some time, and then started angel investing in 2006. My second angel investment was quite good one, so I mistakenly thought, I'm probably a great investor, so I kind of switched to the investor side. Joined Rocket in 2007 when Rocket started, was there for 4.5 years, and then started with 3 other partners, Project A in 2011, 2012. So we're an early stage fund, now manage close to 1.4 billion assets under management. We're in fund number 5 now. We concentrate on the early stage, so we invest all over Europe. Obviously, UK still is part of Europe for us, yeah. So we invest roughly 25% in UK, a third is in Germany and DACH, and 15% Nordics. Rest of Europe. Have 2 offices in Berlin and London. Generalist fund. Try to be the earliest investor in the pre-seed, seed, and sometimes Series A stage. That's basically us. Yeah.
Amazing.
Awesome. So many things to jump into. Project A, we had Jack on.
Yeah, we had Jack Wang, one of the partners at Project A on.
Yeah, which was like a great conversation on defense specifically. You mentioned that your time and your focus is kind of spread between the UK, Germany, and other areas of Europe. What country is getting you the most excited right now for the trends that we're seeing?
I would say I wouldn't necessarily like limit it to like one specific region or specific regions. I think what's the most exciting trend, and the great thing about Europe is you see that all over. Basically, you have, and I think that's a big difference to when we started. You see a lot more technical people or people with technical background starting startups. And when I started in 1999, you mainly had business school graduates doing this. Yeah, and I think I can say that myself as a business school graduate. I think great companies are rarely built by business school founders, or founders right out of business school. And I think yes, we can contribute, but you need kind of the technical, the engineering founders. So, and the great thing about Europe is you have great technical universities all over the place, whether it's in Munich, whether it's in the UK in Cambridge, whether it's in the Netherlands with Delft. There's a couple of really good engineering schools also in Scandinavia and Sweden and Denmark. So I think that's a great thing. And also, if you look at the unicorns in Europe, I mean, they come from, Munich or London, or kind of, if you include Oxford and Cambridge into kind of the wider London area. But there's always these companies coming out of UiPath out of Romania, or you have great companies from the Baltics, and I think that's a great thing about Europe. I mean, while you have a certain concentration on certain areas, I think it's always very important to keep open, to stay open-minded and try to be alert also for founders coming from not so obvious destinations, and I think that's kind of what we try to do.
Yeah,
but I think I think UK is still probably the most active ecosystem, also because you have we have a very good angel base there, and I think what could probably be the most promising, apart from the Baltics, where you see a lot of defense activity right now, also is definitely the Polish ecosystem, the Czech ecosystem, with a lot of hungry, very well educated graduates, and I think that's probably, if you look at how many seed rounds happen in those ecosystems, I think that's probably below average. And I think if we think about what could be next interesting regions for us, it would definitely be, select Eastern European kind of destinations or countries. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we always kind of have these conversations when we're talking about this topic, that there's the density of talent is vast. But also, like, there's very specific pockets of that, like kind of dense, like, talent. And so when you're when you're trying to kind of raise capital for venture, it's like that's the narrative. I want to ask kind of where do you see like more capital kind of flowing into the venture ecosystem in Europe, and is that kind of like on a global, on a Europe kind of scale, or is it like very specific in terms of, you mentioned the UK is very active, or is the most active? Is it like a European thing, or is it like a country by country thing?
Unfortunately, I would say it's still a country by country kind of thing. Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that ideally we would be able to change. Yeah, and I think that's also a problematic aspect about Europe. I mean, there's obviously the European Union, and we try to create a single market, but if you look in detail, it's not really. Yeah, in many details, whether it comes to health tech or digital health kind of startups that have a problem with that. If you look at fintechs, yes, you can passport your license, but the consumer markets are still, when you grind down in the details, when it comes to taxation, etc., it's not a unified market, and it's also when it comes to where the money is coming from, you have French public money going mainly into the French ecosystem. You have German public money mainly going into the German ecosystem, and so on and so on. And I think what we would ideally need to really catch up with the US is like a more unified approach here, and a more strategic approach that's not only focused on specific countries, but that would also be more strategic on a European level. And the same is for capital markets. I think if you have one big thing, you would probably have to change to unlock more capital, because obviously, I mean, as everybody knows, there's lots of money available in Europe theoretically, but only a fraction of that is going into innovation. Only a fraction of that is going into venture capital. And if you see like the large later stage rounds are often led by non-European investors. And even if you look at the European investors like an Excel or a Balderton, or also Creandum, or people like us, a significant share of the money that we invest is not coming from European investors. Yeah. So and I think one kind of tool or one mechanism to really unlock that would be a more performing or a stronger performing capital market here in Europe. I mean, if you hear the discussion, somebody like Revolut, that is mainly probably European business. But very likely will not list in London, but rather list in the US. Or if you have a company like UiPath, that's a Romanian company, they wouldn't even consider as a software business to list in the UK. Not even talking about Frankfurt or something, but they rather list at Nasdaq. And I think one key element would be kind of a unified European capital market that's really able to be deep enough and value tech businesses in a favorable way, because then you also obviously have a lot of trickle down effects for the rest of the ecosystem, and I think that's missing. Another big element is European pension systems, that are apart from the Nordics, not as advanced when it comes to private markets kind of capital allocation as the US is, or and I think that's also a big issue, because not a lot of pension capital from Germany, for example, is channeled to innovation and to VC. And I mean, and it's not saying that it all has to go to European venture. It could also be German pensioners investing more money into Asian funds or US funds or whatever. But it's also a problem when you look at the average return of our pension systems. That's definitely an issue that we're not really meeting best practices or best standards that you see in the US or in endowment funds at other places in the world.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but it seems like, again, we literally discussed this earlier on this show with Tom over at Atomico, the head of Insights. Like, there seems to be this running trend, whether it's conversations that we had at Slush as well, with Vil, the co-founder of Slush, and also with James Wise in the past, and then again earlier today with Tom, that like it seems to be unlocking that. It's not like it is a capital problem, but it's not because the capital's not there. It's because it's a resource allocation problem, which by proxy might be like an educational problem. Sort of like sitting down and maybe speaking with.
And you have a chicken and an egg problem. That's the other thing. It's basically because some of these guys argue, the startup ecosystem in the US has shown better performance, which isn't necessarily true. I mean, it's if you look at European venture funds, they're not systematically performing worse than US funds, but obviously the market is much smaller. And you see kind of most or a lot of the later stage companies here in Europe that are performing really well, they would go rather for non-European investors, with a few exceptions like Atomico and Excel or so. But a lot of the economic value creation from European startups or that's created by European startups or European founders is not going back to Europe. And I think that's obviously a big issue. And it's an education problem. It's a chicken and an egg problem. Because they basically sometimes say if you guys would be doing a better job as a startup ecosystem, we would be investing more money. So you have various factors there. You have regulatory issues, obviously, with European pension funds sometimes also being restricted. That's a big issue also in Germany. But obviously, you have to unpack. You have to kind of unlock it at one stage, and I think the European Investment Fund is doing a pretty good job there. Institutions like KfW are trying to do that, but it's it's very hard to kind of catch up with Silicon Valley, obviously, and it's not really 100% clear of how that could happen, and especially since you don't have a European approach, but you rather have a country by country approach. And I think the only way you could really nail this is by having a concerted kind of action across all over Europe, and that's obviously, if you look at the political landscape right now, it's not really something where we would see more of, I guess, more kind of coordinated European action in a certain direction. That's simply national interests are still too strong.
I mean, sorry, go on, Mavis.
Well, I was gonna change the topic. So
let me do the last question around this. Like, I think it was the Chancellor of Germany maybe who came out a few weeks back about how we should have like this unified European stock exchange. Andreas Klinger, like friend of the stream, an amazing guy, is doing great work with EU Inc. and that movement to sort of unify like this investment thesis and protocol across European states. So what is this like a great step in the right direction, you think? Like is that like the things that we should be doing?
Both steps are. I think both steps are, but but obviously those are just first steps, because I think to really unlock a European tech-focused capital markets kind of ecosystem, you obviously also need investors to be part of this or take active part of this, take active part in this, and that's also obviously one big issue, that the European-based investors that we have are not as active in tech. Yeah, they're not as knowledgeable in tech, so it's also an education problem in that regard. Yeah, and the other big thing is, I mean, the U.S. retail market is when it comes to tech is just much deeper. So the average American retail investor just has a much higher proportion of their money in stocks and also in tech stocks compared to the European one. And that's obviously a big issue. That's an education problem, but that's also a problem of the design of the pension system. Yeah, and in a lot of the countries, particularly Germany, you don't have a 401k equivalent type a way to put money into ETFs or stocks, and that's a big driver of the American kind of retail investing activity you see, and as long as Germany is not keeping up with that, and a lot of other European nations are also not, that's hard to do. And what's actually interesting is that one of the few sectors where public market or where private individuals are quite actively investing in the public markets is defense. Yeah, so that's one of the few areas. But in tech, it hasn't been the case. Like companies like Zalando, Delivery Hero, etc. They all haven't been so great, like overall, but also not on the development on the retail side. And I think that's definitely also an education issue here. And obviously, it's much easier to be a fan of Google or be a fan of Apple than it is to be a fan of TransferWise or Wise. Yeah, because I mean it's just a bigger business and an easier business to understand, and it's a household name. Yeah, and I think you just need more of those companies listing in Europe than creating good value for the investors, and then probably the retail market will pick up, and then you need pension schemes also supporting this, then I think we have a chance. But you need a concerted European effort, and not just the stock exchange that's unified, but also like steps towards creating a more active investor ecosystem. And that's the only way to unlock it, really. Yeah, because then the returns would come back to the venture funds, and then they are able to invest more. Because I mean, if you look at how much of the returns of U.S. venture funds can be attributed to either large scale private equity exits or IPOs, and that's kind of the predominant source of the great returns. And if we have less of that, there's no way that we can scale in a similar kind of way. Yeah, and I think, as most people are convinced, it's not because of talent. I think we have great talent. Yeah, I mean, because some people argue, the U.S. has all the great talent and everybody that's smart moves to the U.S. I think that's really not the case. I mean, yes, to a certain degree, obviously the US is still a very attractive place for the top performing scientists, etc. But if you look at TU Munich, or if you look at Oxford, if you look at Cambridge, those are also great ecosystems, and I think they are definitely able to attract and retain great talent, and I think that's definitely something we can build on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked to. I can't remember his name. He's building Belief Capital.
Belief, Maxime.
No.
Kevin Costa.
Yes, yeah. Kevin Costa. We spoke to him, and his thesis is getting in front of all of those people building in the amazing institutions, and kind of getting in at that time. And so it's like kind of getting in early and backing the kind of spin outs of this amazing talent. And people talk in Europe that there's this I mentioned earlier, the kind of talent density and these technical universities. And I think what he's doing in his strategy in Belief Capital is kind of hitting the nail on the head, where it's you are going over to those literally like geographically and sitting in terms of proximity wise, like very close to these amazing people that will be building these global companies.
And I think that's, if you look at Entrepreneur First, or if you look at AWAR here in mainly Germany, but also attracting, technical talent from all over the place now. Antler is going in a similar route. So I think that's really the thing. And I think what we need to understand, you don't need thousands of these generational type companies. If you produce like 5 to 10 great companies every year across Europe, that would be, that would not be enough, but that would be a big step forward. Yeah? And I think that's really the thing. You don't need thousands or 10,000s of people founding great companies. But yes, obviously that would be great. But if there's a dozen every year, that would be a great success. And I think the talent is there, and you see it in some destinations. Like you see it in Sweden, where you have more venture capital per person already than you have in the US. Yeah. You see it in Israel, where you have a much higher concentration of venture capital per capita than in the US. So it's possible if you have the talent and you have enough kind of people that choose entrepreneurship as an option. But I think what you always have to keep in mind, it's hard to accelerate this kind of process. Yeah, you have to set the kind of right context and the right kind of conditions. But an early stage venture investment, it takes minimum 5 to 10 years for a great company to develop. So if you change things, 3, 4, 5 years from now, you have to wait for 5, 10 years to really see the results of that. And that's obviously also very difficult in a political environment where every 4 or 5 years people are elected. You see it also, for example, in things like Unternehmertum, like out of University of Munich or Technical University of Munich. A lot of the great German-based companies have come out of one program basically there. And it's something that started 12, 15 years ago. But it takes time to kind of create these results. And that's sometimes also difficult, for political people that are responsible in politics to have this long-term or mid-term vision and patience. Because yes, it would be great to accelerate this, but it's always down to the great founders or the great talent building these things, and they just need time. They need people to kind of aspire to, and they need the time to build their stuff. And but I think then we can definitely make it, and we still have very attractive education systems that will produce this talent. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. I think we're out of time.
Yeah, we are unfortunately.
Florian, thank you so much for joining us and closing out the show with us. We'd be happy to have you back on. Obviously, open seat.
I'd love to have you back on.
Really great to meet you.
Yeah, great to have me on, and have a great day. Cheers.
Cheers, Florian. Nice one.
Good stuff. Before we close out the show, just a quick word on Airwallex. Leave outdated business banking behind. The all-in-one platform, financial platform built for the pace of modern business. Multi-currency accounts, high-speed international transfers, corporate cards, expense management, and online payments, all in one platform. I was leaving it behind. Just leave it behind, right? Leave it behind. Go to airwallex.com. They're killing it. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see you on Friday. We have a show on Friday. We're going to be interviewing all the people building Lake Como. It's going to be good stuff.
Be nuts. So
we're going out
on
with Como,
Thursday. We're
Como
flying on
Ventures
Thursday.
Team 1907. Very